Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna give you up, never gonna give you up, never gonna give you, never gonna give you, never gonna give you, never gonna give you, never gonna give you up, let you down.
emerges from beneath the sand. The instinctive miracle seems so far away. Across this universe, she lives another day. I know the reason she stays. I know the reason she's so far away. I know the reason she stays. I know the reason she's so far away. Nicole, how could we run from everything we have done? It only takes us one more step to fall. Nicole, how could we run from everything we have done? It only takes us one more step. Nicole, how I know the reason she stays. Nicole, how I know the reason she's so far away. Nicole, how I know the reason she stays. Nicole, how I know the reason she I know the reason she stays. I know the reason she's so far away. I know the reason she stays. I know the reason she's so far she's so far away.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a good weekend. Tonight we're going to, following on from the nightmare that was trying to look at the Tor bug, I was vastly unprepared for that. In terms of having my machine up and running, ready for debugging, didn't even have WinDebug or IDA installed, and just not really being prepared to chat about browser bugs. I thought we'd do something that I am only just mildly more prepared for tonight, which was something that's been very much requested over on my YouTube channel, which is an intro to PGP. And it was validly raised. I can't remember who raised this point at the end of the last stream when I said I was thinking of doing PGP tonight. But someone said, can we wait until everyone's YubiKey arrived? Because I know a lot of people bought YubiKeys in Yubico's Black Friday weekend type sales. And it was a good point, but you're going to need to understand PGP and basically have your key ready to rock and roll before you even start thinking of playing with your YubiKey. So tonight we're going to, I don't know how far we're going to get. I've got an idea of the end game of what should be explained before we dive into the YubiKey stuff. Might take one stream, might take two, so we'll see how we go, and we will make shit up as we go. I don't really know how I'm going to get across my ideas of how PGP works and how I like to formulate my keys and how I like to store and manage my keys. But we'll see how we go, hey? Tonight, please make sure you jump in with a lot of questions. I have taught PGP to one crowd before. It was during work hours with a work commissioned slide deck, which I have not peeked at and didn't want to reuse for tonight. I thought that might be a little bit improper. So I'm flying by the seat of my pants here with no prepared material, no prepared agenda, and I will probably stuff up. I will probably miss important things. So if something's not clear, please jump into chat. Use my name so that I get a little indicator that someone needs attention, and I will do my best to clarify the things that I stuff up. And speaking of stuffing up, this is a very important disclaimer. I am not a crypto person. PGP is notoriously difficult to get right. We are going on a good adventure indeed, Parks. If you or someone you care about very much relies on secure communications, take what I say, then go and do a heck of a lot of your own research. Don't use what I say in terms of protecting systems or protecting yourself or protecting someone else, because I will probably get stuff wrong. PGP is notoriously difficult to understand and difficult to use. What I hope to do is kind of explain my understanding of it and my understanding of how the various bits and pieces fit together, so that you can be equipped to go and read up on the documentation. Because without having kind of experienced PGP and used GPG and generated a few keys, then the doco and the articles that are written about it, which is just like slabs of terminal stuff of people creating keys in various ways and people using keys in various ways, can be a little bit much to understand. With the insight of the user experience of PGP, those write-ups become a lot easier to understand. So I hope to kind of convey my understanding, give some of my tips, and equip you to go and do your own research if PGP and encrypted communications is important enough to you that you should be doing that. So that's my disclaimer out of the way. Don't trust what I say, because I'm probably wrong. PGP is hard. So if that sounds good, we'll get into it. I will start by making shit up as I go, and we'll see where we end up. So, some ideas. PGP and GPG. I don't really know the etymology, like the roots of PGP. I think PGP was the name of the first implementation, which was then acquired by Symantec, I think. Thanks, Wikipedia, for the donation banner. So in terms of we'll get onto what they mean when they say PGP provides cryptographic privacy and authentication for data communication. We'll get into that. If you're interested as to the roots of PGP, I'm not the person to ask. It looks like there was a open PGP standard. I don't know if the standard came about after PGP. PGP, which stands for Pretty Good Privacy, I think may have been the original implementation, and based on, I don't know if it was bought by Symantec or was created by Symantec. But based on the idea of PGP, GPG came along. So you swap a few letters around and you get GPG. So I think PGP might have been the first implementation. Big question mark there. This is just the history. It's not really that important. The history as I understand it. big question mark there. GPG is a free implementation. GPG, also known as GNU PG, is a free implementation of PGP. So the terms tend to be used relatively interchangeably. A lot of people talk about PGP as kind of the system and the idea of it, whereas GPG, or GNU PG, is the implementation you will likely use to set your keys up and interact with PGP, so to speak. Implementations. On Linux, there is GPG and GPG2. I think GPG2 is a pretty backwards compatibility breaking change in terms of the interface. I think GPG2 supports some niftier stuff. I think GPG2 is generally what brought smart cards. I think GPG supports smart cards, but point being, like Python 2 and Python 3, GPG2 is the newer one. A lot of distros will package both GPG and GPG2. Eventually we'll all move across to using GPG2, but there are two different implementations which might be important if you're following a guide and something's not working. Maybe you need to use GPG2, maybe it's a new feature. I don't understand the difference that well. That's going to work on Linux and probably Mac OS? Question mark? I'm not a Mac user, so I can't speak to Macs. On Windows, there's a bundle TM. If we go and look at GPG for Windows, you get a bundle of stuff. Yeah, GPG for Win. Looks like GNU PG also has some stuff to do with Windows. If you're on Windows, then good luck. Find out the bundle you need. And you get, I think you'll get the CLI tools as well, which will basically be the same as GPG. But you also get this thing here called Cleopatra, which is a GUI. Probably has GPG, the command line version, as well as Cleopatra, a GUI. So you'll probably end up using Cleopatra if you want to point and click your way through creating keys. But for reasons we'll get into later on, you're going to need to use GPG, at least, to create your keys. The spoiler is that you should be, once you kind of get through to the end and understand all the bits and pieces, you should agree that it's best to create your keys on a offline computer. You know, get an old laptop or get your desktop and unplug the network, unplug the Wi-Fi, boot off a live CD and create your keys in a kind of air-gapped offline environment. Do some magic to them, which I can't remember how to do, but we'll look it up as we go. We'll make shit up as we go. So even if you're using Windows, you'll want to create your keys offline using Linux, using GPG, and then import the stuff you need day to day to your Windows machine, and then probably use Cleopatra. So this will actually be implementations and interfaces. Mail clients. Some support GPG natively. For example, I'm not even going to say Mutt supports it natively. If, for example, I don't know which ones. Some have plugins. For example, Outlook, you need a plugin. Not sure about Thunderbird. I don't know where Thunderbird fits in. So in terms of actually sending GPG encrypted mail, which is just one part of the whole idea of, you know, PGP as a whole, you may want to use a mail client where you actually have a GUI or a CLI mail client as you're drafting the email. You kind of tick the encrypt it to all the recipients box and then you hit send and hope that your mail client does the right thing, and it should theoretically encrypt it before sending it. If it fails, it's probably just going to send it in the clear and totally screw you. But the mail client is out of scope for tonight. You can look at how to wire your mail client up to GPG. I just want to kind of convey some of the ideas. Beware, it's easy to fail. And another way that mail clients can fail is if, for example, you have your mail client set up to talk IMAP, or even MAPI in the case of Outlook and Exchange, to a mail server, and you've got an email you're writing and you haven't ticked a PGP box yet, or even if you have ticked a PGP box but your mail client sucks and betrays you, if you save a draft in your drafts folder and then that email makes its way up to the mail server, you've created an artifact on a server, whether it's Gmail or Hotmail or Office 365 or your company's Exchange server, that has the email in the clear. So easy to fail, e.g. drafts. And then just general failures as well, when you hit send and it doesn't do its job properly, and out goes the email in the clear, and you kind of can't drag it back. You're right, Wasabi. You'll need to make sure you've got entropy in your entropy pool before generating the key. Is that important? What do you think, Wasabi? Because if your implementation of GPG uses dev random, then it should block while it is starved for entropy, and it'll wait till more entropy's been generated in the pool of entropy that the kernel maintains. And your key actually will take minutes or even hours to generate if your machine sucks at kind of slurping up random data. If your machine uses dev urandom for the keys, then dev urandom. So there's two. It's a good point, Wasabi. I thought you make the entropy when you make the key. Yeah, you can smash the keyboard as well or trigger disk activity. It is a good point, Wasabi. So let's talk about entropy real quick, and then let's come back to whatever rambling of an intro I wanted to do. Entropy. When you generate a key or subkey, we'll talk about subkeys later. GPG needs random data to base it on. There are two places on Linux, at least, that a program can get random data from. One is dev random, a blocking source of random data, fed by random occurrences, e.g. keyboard typing patterns. When you type, you don't type with an extremely consistent tempo. You know, you'll kind of press one key, then another key, then a third key, and the gaps in time between each key down to the microsecond level are going to be vastly different. You know, you can't type consistently, and so your kernel will actually consume the keyboard patterns, not the keys you're necessarily typing, but the timing between them, I believe, and use that as a source of randomness. Another source of randomness, if you've got a spinning hard disk. I don't know how SSDs affect this equation, but a spinning hard disk, based on if the hard disk coughs up the rotational velocity of the platters, then that might be a source of entropy. As the air moves over it, it slows it down and speeds it up. Alternatively, just the amount of time it takes to seek for files. Like if you just kick off a find / redirect the output and the error output to dev null so that it doesn't show on the screen the files I've got on my disk. If you do that, your hard drive will be forced to basically go through every single directory and every single file. This is an SSD, so it went super quickly. I don't know how effective it's going to be at using an SSD to generate timing randomness. But if you go and do this, you're going to cause a whole lot of disk accesses to occur, and the kernel may be configured to actually use that as a source of entropy. If you're interested, you should go and read more about how entropy is generated. But the point is, dev random blocks. As soon as the pool of entropy has been depleted by a consumer being, for example, your web browser generating random keys to talk to a HTTPS website, GPG trying to generate a key and asking for a whole bunch of random data. Any application on your computer that asks for random data that is configured to use dev random, which is a blocking source of random data, will deplete that pool because your kernel doesn't want to risk handing out the same random data to two different applications. And when it runs out, then further requests for random data from dev random will block, which means the kernel will say, I know you're trying to read from me, but just hold up. You're going to have to wait a second while some more randomness enters the pool. We can actually do an example of this. We can do will xxd just continue and let's cat dev urandom, pipe it to xxd. There we go. So you can see that if we read dev urandom, we're going to get random data for days because it doesn't block. If we come back here, dev urandom, a non-blocking source of random data. It also is fed by random occurrences. Oop. It's not what I wanted. You get the idea. It's fed by random occurrences as well. Difference is it doesn't block. It doesn't run out. It doesn't exactly loop back on itself, but I think when the pool gets depleted, the kernel will kind of go, I've run out of random data, but someone's trying to read dev_view_random, which is a non-blocking source of random data. In fact, that's probably sending the stream to hell with all the changing characters. The kernel will do some mathematics based on some old random data to kind of seed some new random data. There's a lot of debate if you go researching as to whether dev_view_random is insecure. We search for view_random is insecure. Then there's people saying either it is or isn't safe. So this is a claimed myth. Dev_view_random is insecure. Always use dev_random. The fact is, dev_view_random is the preferred source of cryptographic randomness on Unix-like systems. Blah blah blah. This looks like it's a pretty good article that tries to dispel some of the myths. People tended to think that if it's a non-blocking source of random data, then how can you guarantee that what you're getting is really random? Some people think it's actually safe to use. My point being, depends whether GPG uses dev_random or dev_view_random. I think it uses dev_random because key generation tends to be painfully slow with GPG. But if your GPG uses dev_view_random, keys will be quick. Maybe they're less secure. So you're right, Wasabi. Yeah, I have heard about SSH keys being weak. That was, I think that's especially when the machine gets cloned and has shitty entropy on boot, because the Linux kernel will save some entropy on shutdown, and then on the next boot we'll use that to seed dev_view_random until there's some other stuff to seed it with. So if the machine had really shitty entropy and was generating an SSH key very quickly upon boot, and it was reusing some saved entropy, then that would probably cause key collisions. But yeah, you raise a good point. Maybe if you want to be super paranoid, then boot your offline machine, leave it for an hour or two so that it can generate some random data. I was going to go and do the same activity that I did with dev_view_random on dev_random, but I don't want to deplete my entropy, because then our key generation that we're going to do soon will take forever. Good point, Wasabi. Yeah, I think maybe, yeah, you're right, that people should leave their machine for an hour or two just to make sure there's random data there. How's it going, Jimzo? Good to have you around. So yeah, entropy. That's how these two sources of entropy work. And if you need bedtime reading, there's plenty of people arguing on the internet about which one is safe and which one is not, or if they're both safe. So implementation. So you've got mail clients. They're easy to fail. For example, your drafts. What else is wrong with mail clients? I had another idea. What else was I going to say about mail clients? No, it escapes me. Could have been that important. And so a lot of people kind of choose to do their GPG on the command line. Type out your email, save it in a file, use GPG to do the encryption, have a look at the file, make sure it looks like it was encrypted properly, and then send that as an attachment or however. If you're going to use a plugin for your mail client, make sure you understand how it works. Make sure your drafts aren't leaking clear text draft emails. Make sure you understand how it operates when you send stuff when it comes to sending to someone who you do have the GPG key for. Try sending to someone, ticking the PGP box where they don't have a GPG key in your keyring, and see if your mail client betrays you and sends it in the clear, or see if your mail client yells at you and says, hey, this person doesn't have a key. Make sure you understand how it's going to fail, whether it fails shut or fails open. Otherwise, yeah, just use the command line. The command line's always a safe way to go. In fact, a lot of people have rants about how to use GPG. Grux got quite a good one. Grux says, or maybe it's not Grux, maybe it is actually Ben's. Yeah, if you search Grux GPG, you might find some cool stuff, but Ben Nagy also has some good stuff. Yeah, here we go. Operational PGP is by Grok. It's got some good stuff. I think Gruck is a huge fan of draft your email in a text file, encrypt it, and then send it. Don't rely on your mail client. And then Ben's also got a whole bunch of good stuff. Basically, go and read Ben and Gruck's stuff. They both have great points. And you look at this, you're just like, oh Christ, we've got a huge config file. This is actually how you configure MUT, the mail client, to use PGP. But still, you've got to do this stuff here in your GPG conf. Like, yeah, GPG is a bit of a pain to use. It isn't that straightforward, but I think it's good fun. I really like. Maybe I'm just a masochist, but I enjoy playing with and talking about PGP. So maybe that should be like a note at the top here. Read Gruck and Nagi's stuff on PGP. That's Ben Nagi, by the way. So that's the interfaces and the implementations. Windows, you're going to end up using something like Cleopatra. Linux, will use GPG. Beware if your mail client betraying you. That's how entropy works. So what does PGP do? What does it do? PGP is kind of a bit more like an ecosystem than a single program. It does a whole bunch of stuff. One, it uses asymmetric crypto, which we'll talk about now, I guess. So there's two types of crypto. There's symmetric crypto and asymmetric crypto. Symmetric crypto uses the same key to encrypt something as it does to decrypt something. Asymmetric crypto has the idea of key pairs. You use one key to encrypt the thing, then you can't use that same key to decrypt it. You've got to use kind of the cousin key of that key to decrypt it. The two different keys are asymmetric and they mirror each other in behavior. And given one half of those two keys, it should be difficult to discover the other half of those two keys. Some people refer to it as public-private key crypto, with the idea being that you kind of create these two keys at once and they form a key pair, and you go and share the public half and then you keep the private half secret. So that's what asymmetric crypto is, but then PGP puts a lot of semantics around how it works, a lot of protocol around how it works, and it's more like a big ecosystem that uses asymmetric crypto to do a few things. The first thing it does is provides confidentiality. Encryption. When you encrypt something to someone else, it provides confidentiality. The message that you send them is confidential and no one in the middle can read what you're saying. That's what you use encryption for. Keeps your stuff private. And what's really neat about asymmetric crypto providing the confidentiality is you don't need to basically hit up everyone you want to talk to and go, hey, we should come up with a key that we will both use to talk to each other using an encrypted tunnel from now on. You just need to go and get someone's public key. They keep their private key secret, and then you encrypt stuff to their public key, and then only that person can decrypt it with their private key. So it saves having to basically share a unique key between every two parties, and means that everyone needs one key pair. They publish the private part, they publish the public part, keep the private part secret. 2, it provides integrity. Using signing. So integrity means that actually provides integrity and authenticity. Integrity means that if I wanted to say something to Wasabi and we had Parks sitting in between us. Okay, so yeah, confidentiality means if I wanted to say something to Wasabi and Parks was kind of in between us and could tamper with the messages and could read the messages, confidentiality means that Parks couldn't see what we're talking about. Integrity means that Parks can't change what we're talking about. In as much as if I said to Wasabi, hey, I'm doing well, Parks couldn't change that message to be, hey, I am a stupid person. To give an example, it means that what you say becomes tamper-proof. Authenticity means that Wasabi knows it's me who's saying it, as opposed to knowing that what he heard is the right version. He knows it was definitely me who authored it. And PGP achieves this using signing. So encryption and signing are two different activities. The encryption provides the confidentiality, the signing provides the integrity, the tamper-proofness of it, and the authenticity. You know the author, and you can prove that that person authored the thing. It's important to note that you can do one of these without the other using PGP. You could encrypt stuff to keep it confidential, but not sign it, which might be important if you want to have a very casual conversation with someone and not have them be able to prove, for example, in court, that you said what you said. If you use encryption without signing, you can have a private conversation but not be held accountable for what you say, which might be important to you. You can sign stuff without encrypting it. For example, if you want to make a very public statement, you could say something, sign it, everyone in the public space who reads it knows it was you, knows that no one put words in your mouth and tampered with what you wrote, but it's not encrypted, anyone can read it. That's how we get things like code signing. Organizations or people sign the computer code that they write, and then when someone consumes that code, they can go, okay, cool, it was definitely so-and-so who wrote this code, therefore if I trust that person, I'm going to run it because it's, written by Microsoft, so it's probably not malware. Or it's written by Symantec, so it's probably not malware. For your definition of not malware for any one party, not naming names. 3, what else does PGP do? Gives us a web of trust. The web of trust is really interesting. To boil it down to its most basic components, and you could use it in its most basic way and not bother with the web, you could just use the trust part. When you get if I was to get a signed message from Wasabi, how do I know that it was actually his key that signed the message? We get these things called key servers. It has key servers, key servers are a public directory of keys that you can go and download keys based on someone's key ID. If someone says my key ID, for example, my key ID, I am OXFC541779. That's the short key ID, and we'll talk through later why it's not safe to use short key IDs. We've got so much to cover, so many corner cases, but I hope you'll get something out of it. And if I'm going too quickly or if anything's not clear, just make sure you yell my name in chat. Based on someone's key ID, you can use a key server to go and download their key. So Wasabi has to say to me, Wasabi, drop your key ID in chat. If it's on a public key server. If anyone's got a key on a public key server, drop it in chat, because I'm going to use you as a victim, not a victim, as a party to demonstrations. So I can go and download Wasabi's key from a key server, but how do I know it's really his key? Just like you can go and download a HTTPS certificate from a self-signed HTTPS site, how do you know it's really the right self-signed certificate? Like someone could have just someone could have created a dodgy key and put it on key servers. I have to actually reach out to Wasabi at least once and say, hey Wasabi, give me your key fingerprint. He'll give me his key fingerprint, which is a really long string of numbers, and then I can kind of compare stuff. We'll get through to fingerprints later on. But once I'm sure that it is Wasabi, I can do one of two things. I can locally sign his master key. And what that means is that I am saying just to myself on my computer that this is definitely Wasabi's key. I've checked it out and I've talked to Wasabi and it's definitely the right key. Therefore, in future when Wasabi sends me signed messages, I know it's really him who wrote them because I've kind of proven his key to really be his. Then when I want to encrypt stuff to him, I know that I can look in my local directory of signed keys and go, okay, cool, I have a key for Wasabi. It's signed by my key and I trust my key. Therefore, I trust this is really Wasabi's key. And I can reach out to Wasabi in confidence knowing that I've got the right key for him. So I got Wasabi's key from a key server and then I trusted it by signing it locally. But if I didn't want to just sign it locally, if I wanted to sign it in an exportable way, i.e. not just a local signature, but a signature, I can actually tack a signature onto Wasabi's key. I can kind of put it at the end of his bundle of keys. Wasabi, okay, no worries, Wasabi. How's it going, Ulma? It's not a programming thing tonight, it's more of a GPG crypto kind of thing. Yeah, it's just a text file right now. That's not a programming language. Sorry, that I should have made that clear. It's not a programming language. I'm just typing out some notes as I think of them. We're chatting tonight about PGP, which is a system that can be used to encrypt messages between two people, as well as other things. Good point, Parks. Shadow brokers leaks. They were signed, but they weren't encrypted, so everyone could read it and verify that it really was the shadow brokers. And then, when they would later release more information, if it was signed by the same key, we knew that it was really coming from the same people. That's a really good use of PGP. Good call, Parks. Doing well. Thanks, Jimzo. Good to have you around. Optionally, don't have any friends to email. Yes, I think was it Liam who tweeted that? Liamasaur? That was that made my day. Nah, Jardef, you can do them one at a time, or you can do both. So what was I saying? Yeah, Web of Trust. So if I was to say this really is Wasabi, I've got his key, I verified his fingerprint, I can sign his key with my key and append that signature to his bundle of signatures. I can then upload that to a key server. So yeah, big point. Key servers have public keys, not private keys. You keep your private key private. No, there is not Jardeth. If everything's going to plan, then they all mesh together. They all share stuff on a schedule. And so if you upload something to one, it'll eventually become synchronized across all of them. If you download something from one, it needn't necessarily have been uploaded to that same key server. It may have been uploaded to another one participating in the global mesh, and then synchronized overnight. So no, they all synchronize together. What I would do is I'd go and catch Wasabi at Sec Talks or at the pub, or I'd call him up because I've got his phone number, and I'd say, "Hey Wasabi, on the phone, I know the sound of your voice. I know this sounds like your voice. Can you read me your fingerprint?" And Wasabi would go, "Yeah, sure, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth." And based on the fact that I know Wasabi's voice, it means that if you're going to go super, tinfoil hat and think, oh, there could be someone on the phone line who's tampering with the voice, yeah, probably not. I know what Wasabi sounds like. I know it's him reading the fingerprint. So I'd contact him out of band. I wouldn't email him and say, email me back your fingerprint. I may not even reach out to him on Slack and say, hey, can you Slack me your fingerprint, because that could be man in the middle. Then we're trying to kind of bootstrap secure communications forever. Key signing party is another one. But really, if it was just Wasabi, I would just contact him out of band. Signal and or phone and or see him at the pub. Damn, gotta change it. And I would swap signatures, fingerprints with him there. The other thing is, if you've got a business card, go and put your PGP fingerprint on your business card, and then just hand your business card out to people. And as long as they get that business card from you in person, they can take it home and use it to then make a decision about whether to trust and sign your key or not. There's a lot of options, but generally it's a very manual process. But you do it once, and you're going to have secure communications with that person forever. And the Web of Trust. I should finish this thought. The Web of Trust. What I can do is this is like the third time I'm trying. I could sign Wasabi's key, append my signature to his bundle of signatures. I can actually upload the modified public key to key servers, which has my signature concatenated in the bundle. And then if anyone else goes and downloads it, for example, Jardeth goes and downloads it, then he will get Wasabi's key information, as well as every single signature that anyone has ever done for Wasabi, if they've done it in a exportable fashion and then uploaded it to key servers. And so if Jardeth had already gone through the effort of verifying that my key, this is the short ID, never use short IDs. Short IDs are useful for referring to keys locally on your computer. Never trust them when you're getting stuff from key servers, and we'll go through why shortly. And we'll go through what a key ID is. If Jardev got Wasabi's key from a key server, it flowed on down to his computer, he saw that I had signed it. If he had personally validated my key with me out of band and he had either done a full-blown signature and uploaded it to key servers, or if he'd just done a local signature and said, I don't want to advertise to the world that I know Justin, because knowing Justin may not necessarily be something to be proud of, then he could have just made a local signature. And he can go, okay, so I trust that this key, this short key ID, belongs to Justin. I can see that a key with that ID signed Wasabi's key. Therefore, as long as I trust Justin to make good life decisions when it comes to signing other people's keys, I can trust that that key really is Wasabi's. So the web of trust is basically, you form these connections with people. As more people sign your key, as you sign more people's keys, and we all share who has signed whose keys, it may end up being kind of like, Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation. If we all did this properly, were diligent and active and passionate about signing people's keys and uploading them, then in a couple of years it may be the case that you can form multiple paths through this mesh or this web of trust, and it may only kind of take you 6 connections to trust that someone's key really is someone's key. And if we all did this diligently, then you may have a couple of paths through the mesh to any person in the world who uses PGP, and you may be able to leverage the web of trust to avoid that single out-of-band contact. You would never sign someone's key based on the output of the web of trust. If you wanted to be super sure that that person really is that person, contact them, fingerprint, validate, sign it, upload it, and strengthen that web of trust. So that's how the web of trust works, and it's something that's inherent to PGP. HTTPS uses the public CA infrastructure for making signed attestations that this certificate really belongs to this company and it's on this server, therefore that server really is the right server. It uses this kind of manual / automated validation process with a couple of centralized, trusted brokers of certificates. The web of trust is entirely user-driven, and it's up to people to actually make sure it remains healthy. There is, I think S-MIME is an alternative to PGP if you just want encrypted emails. I think S-MIME actually you need to buy a certificate from a CA, like a personal certificate, whereas PGP is it's kind of like a peer-to-peer implementation or peer-to-peer way of thinking of trust. So that's what PGP is. You can encrypt stuff, sign stuff, use the web of trust to validate things, use key servers to download keys from. Am I missing anything that PGP does? You can use it to sign code, you can use it to sign git commits, and you can actually, when you do a git pull or a git clone, you can kind of go, oh, okay, cool, it really is Justin, or it really is OJ, or it really is so-and-so from Rapid7 who made this commit to Metasploit. So you can sign your git commits, which I think is pretty cool. Am I missing other uses of PGP? Yeah, it would be. A lot of people are pretty anal about the way that they do their key signing, though. Good question. If they were being stupid like that, hopefully people wouldn't be signing their keys. Because when you sign someone's key, you're really kind of making 2 statements. First of all, this person really is this person. Second of all, they're not a jerk, so they wouldn't be signing everyone's key. But you're right, if someone did that, if someone was caught doing that, the other thing is you can always revoke a signature. You can download someone's... If I'd signed Wasabi's key and Wasabi starts being a jerk, I could download his key from a key server, revoke the signature that I put on it by kind of re-signing it with my key, saying, nope, I retract my statement. This is an invalid signature. If I then upload that to key servers, it will then synchronize with all the other key servers and will basically infect every other key server with that note that I no longer trust Wasabi. And we could probably cut him out of much of the web of trust. But yeah, good point. What if someone was a jerk and just signed all the keys? If someone's doing that, but they're just kind of doing it in an automated fashion by themselves on a server somewhere, then no one's going to sign their key. There are heaps of fake keys on servers and stuff. But as long as no one's signing them, they kind of form their own parallel web of trust that just sits there polluting key servers, but not actually connected to the rest of the real web of trust. Alex Park, no, I cannot. No one in here can. That's not what we do here. We're here to learn, not here to break laws and then be banned from the industry. So if that continues, then there'll be timeouts handed out because that's not tolerated here. Does that kind of make sense so far? I mean, it's not the technical overview, but it's just kind of the general overview of the capabilities that PGP has and some of the ideas like encryption and signing. We'll get into the mechanics of it with some fake keys in a second and create a key for Alice and create a key for Bob and encrypt some messages and sign some messages. But does that kind of make sense as to... And have I missed anything? Have I missed a use of PGP? I may be missing a... Yeah, I think that's basically the gist of what it does. Someone let me know if I'm forgetting something. Let's make some keys. That's not what I want. Let's kick off a couple of Docker containers. All right, so we got two Docker containers. Let's call this one here Alice. I'm just going to hack on some RC files here. These are my custom RC files that I can use to do Z-shell RC stuff on this local box. I'm just going to use it to set up the prompt so we can tell the difference. There we go. So we've got Alice workstation and we'll get Bob as well. Okay, so we've got Alice workstation and Bob workstation. What I'll do now is I'll just go and this is a Docker container. I'm just going to go and get rid of the GNU PG directory on both of them because my Docker containers actually have a couple of keys in them that I put there during creation. Just a couple of public keys, which we don't want today. We want to start off clean. Can't type tonight. Really can't type tonight. There we go. So now if we do gpg-list keys on both boxes, we see that we get some output here, but if we just get rid of that, then there's no keys. We just got some output that says that it created a couple of directories because it's the first time that each computer has used GPG. So I went and blew away that directory. So there's no keys on either box. Two fresh boxes. Oh, it's a server made for hacking, is it? Interesting. Unless that's just your way of getting me to hack someone's Minecraft server. What does Google say about it? That's not what I wanted at all. Just went to some dodgy server. I tried to search Google, but it actually went there. That was my bad. Doesn't look like it's actually made for hacking. Looks like I went to something that I probably shouldn't have. Luckily, this is running in a Docker container. So, no, can't hack that one. Sorry about that. Two fresh machines. Gee, I really shouldn't have gone to that IP address. I thought I was going to do a Google search. Wait for me. I'm going to get DDoSed in like 5 minutes. I guarantee it. I'm going to have my IP address posted in chat and I'm getting DDoSed. Yeah, I agree. So let's generate a key on both machines. So on Alice we do gpg-gen-key. So GPG tells us, note, use gpg-full-gen-key. I think this is this is actually GPG2 by the looks of it. I think Debian's gone and actually replaced GPG with GPG2, so you get this kind of cut down way of generating key. If we do --full-gen-key, then we get asked more questions. If we then go and add --expert to the end, we get asked even more questions. But for now, let's just do the full gen key. So what it does, first thing it asks us is, what kind of key do you want? Do you want RSA and RSA, which is the default, or these other ones? We want the default. So when it says your selection, you pick number 1. What key size do you want? You should probably do 2K at an absolute minimum, preferably 4K. Unless you've got a YubiKey, in which case you're going to need to, if you've got a YubiKey 2, you're going to need 2K subkeys. You can have a 4K master key, but you need a 2K subkey. We'll get onto subkeys and master keys shortly. Gee, we've got a lot to cover. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to pick 1024-bit keys, because I don't want my entropy pool running out and blocking the creation of keys. If we pick 2K keys, then it's going to take a long time because the entropy pool will run out. If we pick 1K keys, hopefully they'll be quicker to generate. However, they will be insecure. Don't generate 1K keys. 2K minimum, 4K preferred, unless you've got a YubiKey 2, in which case you're going to need to have 4K master keys, 2K subkeys. So we'll do 1024 bits. It's going to ask us how long the key should be valid for. This is to do with setting the expiry. Gee, I forgot how much there is to know about creating keys. Expiries. Expiries are super important on PGP keys. A lot of people who at first create their keys create their keys without expiration, and that's bad. A lot of people think that when they create a key and they add an expiration, it means that after the key expires, they'll have to generate a new key, which is not true. Key expiration serves a couple of purposes. It's mostly a dead man's switch. If you were to lose your key and not be able to get to what's called a revocation certificate, which we also have to go through, so much to kind of get through, we'll be here for hours. I think this is going to be a 2-stream intro, and then the YubiKeys will be another 1 or 2 stream series. Dead man switch, revocation later, but yeah, dead man switch means that if you lose your key, then it doesn't kind of sit around valid forever. The other thing it achieves is it forces people to check into key servers regularly. If they see that your key's expired, then they're going to need to do what's called a refresh of your key from key servers, which means they will be contacting the key server and say, hey, for this key ID here, can you please send me the full bundle again? Which will give them the new copy of your key that you will hopefully have extended, because you can always extend an expiry date. If you have access to the master key, you can actually extend the expiry of the master key and of the subkeys. And when they check in, they may very well find out that you uploaded a revocation certificate for the old subkeys because they became compromised or no longer used. And you've got new subkeys signed by your master key. We'll go through master keys and subkeys shortly. Master keys and subkeys all form one big blob. When most people think of a key, they're actually thinking of a whole big blob of keys, with one being the master and all the others being the subs. And it's a good idea to make people, to force people to regularly, and when I say regularly, once every 2 years, re-download your keys from key servers, just in case you've kind of changed your keys in the meantime, and there's new subkeys there. So we're going to go 2 years. You just go number 2, Y for years, just like this. The key will expire in 2 years. It's going to tell us that the key is going to expire in December 2018. Does it look correct? Yup. Okay, now we need to give a real name. So I'm just going to go Alice Example. Email address, alice@example.com. It asks us for a comment. Never ever add a comment to your keys. In fact, I think Debian has a good write-up as to why not. Oh yeah, by the way, riseup.net has, as well as the Grux stuff, read RiseUp's recommendations. Read RiseUp's recommendations as well. I think they've got a link here. Yeah, there you go. Never include comment. It's Debian administration that has the write-up. It basically defies a lot of the purpose as to what keys should mean and makes your key less useful and a pain for other people to deal with. It goes through all the examples of all the things that you might think to put in your comment, like your nicknames, or whether it's your work or personal key, blah blah blah, old key do not use, blah blah blah. Talks about the parameters of the key, like it gives you a reason to not do any of this. Never ever put a comment in your keys, just press enter. Then it says you've selected this user ID. User IDs are another thing we probably need to go into. A key can have one or more user IDs, being full name and email address. By the way, this email address here is not just a way for people who get your key to contact you. It is a way that people's mail clients, if they use a mail client with PGP, it's a way that their mail client will look you up. So any email address that you expect to be signing email as, or signing messages as, or receiving encrypted email to, you need a separate user ID in the key with that email address. Otherwise, people's mail clients will freak out and go, well, I don't know which key to use for that person. So put all your email addresses in as a separate user ID. If this looks good, it's going to ask you to change the name, change the comment, change the email, or say that it's okay. So we go O for OK, press enter. And you saw there it flashed up that it needed to collect random entropy. Flashed up really quickly because we're using a 1K key. If it was a bigger key, that would have taken longer. Now it asks us for a passphrase. Always put a passphrase on your keys. Always put a passphrase on your SSH keys. Just all your keys, put passphrases on them. Enter the passphrase to protect your new key. I'm going to go Alice123. Don't use dumb key passphrases. Always use good passphrases. Alice123. There we go. Here is Alice's key. Alice can now do gpg-list-keys. And there it is. Your output will probably look different. This is really, really good. This must be a change that GPG2 has made. It used to provide you with the short key ID in this field of the output of --list-keys. Now it actually shows you the full fingerprint. Like, that is a really good default. I hadn't seen that GPG2 was doing that now, and that makes me happy. So what is this output telling us? --list-keys will actually list all the public keys that Alice has on her computer. This is one set of keys. It's actually made up of two keys. It's made up of one RSA 1024 key and another RSA 1024 key. It's got the date that it was created. It's got the expiry date. It's the same date for the master key and the sub key. Same expiry for the master key and the sub key. We've got a fingerprint here, which is the full fingerprint that someone like Wasabi and I would read to the phone over each other to confirm that we've really got the right key. We've got a user ID. It's ultimately trusted because it is Alice's own key. If she had other people's keys in this list here, then they would come up as either trusted or not, but Alice gets ultimate trust because it is herself. Because I did see it flash up, Jardeth. I saw it before. Where did I see it? Here. That's how I saw it was GPG2, because I did see that out of the corner of my eye. I probably should have mentioned something. So you can see, yeah, in the version banner of full gen key. We're also doing GPD-version. There it is there. Back to list keys. So we've got two keys, and we've got these letters in square brackets. This one is SC, this one is E. We'll come back to those really soon. They are key capabilities, and they are very important when designing your keys. What I did here is I created a key the most basic way possible. A, it's a 1K key, don't do it. B, it's got a dumb passphrase, don't do that. But C, I didn't do -- expert, and I didn't do anything tricky. And I didn't generate it offline. And I generated it in Docker. I would dare say never ever generate keys. Going on from what Wasabi said, I would dare say don't generate keys in VMs. I wouldn't trust their entropy as much as a physical machine booting off a Linux live CD that you trust. Use a Linux live CD you trust. I wouldn't probably generate my keys using Kali. I would use a much more closer to the source thing, like maybe a Debian live CD, or maybe Tails for generating keys. I probably wouldn't use Kali to generate keys. Nothing against the Kali keys, I would just rather a much more vanilla system for generating keys in. Alrighty, let's create a key for Bob, hey, on Bob's workstation. GPG, was it full gen key? Yep. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pick number 1 for RSA and RSA. These are different key types. These two can obviously only sign stuff. They can't have stuff encrypted to them. Elgamal, I'm not too up on Elgamal, but DSA I don't think is a very strong key. I don't think it's a strong key these days. Not 100% sure. I just know that everyone does RSA. Maybe you can look into whether it's worth doing this for you, see if that is right. Ask your doctor if DSA and Elgamal is right for you. I'm going to do number 1, RSA and RSA. What key size? 1024 to make it quicker. Key is valid for 2 years. That's correct, yes. Real name is Bob Example. Email is bob@example.com. Comment, leave it blank, always leave it blank. Check to make sure that looks okay. Looks good to me, so we type O for OK. And now it's just, yep, you saw it flash up quickly that it was getting random bits. New passphrase is Bob123. You've entered an insecure passphrase. A passphrase should be at least 8 characters long. I would dare say it should be longer, but we're going to take this one anyway, because stuff you, I'm going to use my luggage combination. Please re-enter Bob123. So here is Bob's key. We do gpg -list -keys, and we can see this here is Bob's key. Alice and Bob have different key fingerprints, which is good, because if they had the same key fingerprint, we would have just managed to roll the dice in a way that shouldn't have been possible. The fingerprint is basically, I think it's a hash or some other critical component of your master key. Your subkeys will also have their own key ID and their own fingerprint. It's not shown in this listing because it's not really that important until you get into the internals of stuff. Day to day, you really only care about people's master key fingerprint, which is right here. Just for funsies, we can do, I'm going to full screen Bob for a second so we can see Bob full screen. We can do gpg -list -secret -keys as well. Do we get the same key ID? Yes, we do. Okay, so your public and private keys have the same key ID. We can see here that Bob has exactly one secret set of keys, which is the corresponding secrets to these public keys. So you can do list keys and list secret keys to your heart's content. Rightio, we've got 2 sets of keys. Now, because we're responsible PGP people who have a 1K key, Mustafa, what are you going to do with these keys? We'll get to that shortly. That's what we're going to do with them, but right now I'm going to take it slowly. Should we take it slowly and go through all the responsible things that a key owner should do, or should we get straight to using them? Because I want to kind of play this out as both these two people are doing the right thing and taking it slowly and setting up their stuff properly, but I understand it might be getting a bit boring. We can jump straight to the encryption and signing and then loop back later on to the responsible stuff like revocation. We'll do that because this might be getting boring for some people. So what I want to, it's not that you necessarily want to trust my master key rather than my sub key. but it's more that you want to refer to my entire package of keys according to my master key's ID. Why would I only want to trust a subkey for some specific thing? If someone's got multiple subkeys, for example, right here we can see that Alice has exactly one subkey. Its capability is set to E for encryption. So if you wanted to encrypt a message to Alice, and you referred to Alice by her email address or her name or even her key ID. And so remember how I was talking about key IDs before, by the way. I am FC541779. Your 32-bit key ID refers to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The bottom 8 hex characters of your fingerprint. So that there is Alice's short key ID. Her long key ID is something like about that. This is her full fingerprint. So they're all kind of subsets of each other. Just much like, BX is the low. I've lost my ability to do math. You know how BX is the low couple of bytes of EBX, which is the low couple of bytes of RBX? Same sort of thing. The short ID is a subset of the long ID, which is a subset of the fingerprint. So you kind of use the IDs or the fingerprints or the long IDs or which have you to refer to someone's key. For example, I want to encrypt something to Alice. I would use my tool, for example, GPG, and say encrypt something to this ID or to this name or to this email address. If you supply a name or an email address, GPG will search through all of the keys in your list and pick the appropriate one. Then what it'll do is it'll look at all the subkeys for that key you referred to or the user ID that you referred to, and it'll look for any of them that are not expired, not revoked, and have the encryption capability. It will then use that key to encrypt it to. So if someone had multiple subkeys with the encrypt capability, you may want to refer to it directly to say, I want to encrypt to exactly this subkey, because you know that that person has a certain subkey for their laptop and another subkey for their desktop. That person needs to get their shit together and not do that, because that is really painful for everyone else. They should probably have the same encryption key on both machines. Or if they really do have two separate identities due to it being two different machines, they should have two different master keys, in my opinion. People do some weird stuff though, so you may need to have someone's subkey ID to actually encrypt to a particular key, because you know that they're expecting to receive that data on a particular machine. But in general, most people just only have one encryption subkey, and so you just refer to their master ID, and away she goes. Also, if you're going to sign people's keys, really what you're doing is just signing separate UIDs. Someone might have 3 user IDs. They may have their full name and their work email address, their full name and their personal email address, their full name and some other email address, and you kind of get the option when you sign their key to say, yeah, nah, I don't know that they really are working at that company, so I'm not going to sign that user ID. And you'd kind of sign the user IDs you want to sign. So when you're signing, you're kind of talking about their master fingerprint and their UIDs. The subkeys are really just an internal mechanic. You should never need to refer to them unless someone's asking you to encrypt to a particular subkey because they've got multiple subkeys because they're annoying. Sorry, multiple encryption subkeys. Multiple subkeys are totally fine. It's actually how I have my key set up. In fact, we should do GPG list keys OX FC541779. You can see I've got 3 subkeys, but they all have different capabilities. If you want to encrypt stuff to me, this is the key you should use. It's a 2K key. If you expect me to be signing stuff, this will be the key I'll use. It's a 2K key. Authentication, that's actually my SSH public key. You can go and download my SSH public key from key servers. That's how you end up having your SSH key on your YubiKey, by the way. Speaking of YubiKey, I'm lucky I haven't needed my password manager yet because my YubiKey isn't even plugged in. As I said before, my key ID is that. You can see that it appears at the end of my signature. Fingerprint. This is my fingerprint. That there is my short key ID. You can see it also appears there. This is a long ID, by the way. That's what a long ID looks like. That's what a short ID looks like. That's what a fingerprint looks like. So hopefully that demonstrates that not everyone who has multiple subkeys is annoying. It's just when they've got multiple encryption subkeys, in which case, stuff them, refer to their master ID, they can pick up the pieces and deal with the mess when they get the message that you encrypted to some random key of theirs. So we're going to just charge on and do some cool stuff, then loop back later on to the housekeeping and responsible key ownership stuff. I will get to that shortly, Jardeth. That's the end game, and that's where we all need to be before we get to the YubiKey stuff. I can give you the spoiler. The spoiler is, again, this is my personal keys. These are my public keys. So --list keys shows the public keys. All 4 public keys, the C for certify, E for encryption, which is really what other people use to encrypt stuff to me with, S for signing, which is the one I use for signing stuff, and A for authentication for SSH. All 4 public keys are on my laptop. Public keys are on my laptop. In terms of private keys, these 3 are on my YubiKey. The private part of this public key isn't even on my laptop. It has actually never touched this laptop. It is only ever stored offline on a drive in a location. I plug it into my secondary laptop, which I boot off a live CD without the network turned on, to do my key management. When I say key management, I mean doing things like adding new subkeys, which I haven't done yet, but in 2017 I will be doing for the first time. Because when I get, well, actually I might do it sooner. When I get my YubiKey 4, these 2K keys are all getting chucked in the bin. Not chucked in the bin, they're getting revoked, which revocation we'll go through shortly. And I'll be creating new 4K subkeys. I'll need to use my certify key to create the self-signed bundle that incorporates the 3 new keys into the mix. I'll need to use my certify key to generate revocation certificates for these 3 keys. Those revocation certificates get published through key service so that everyone knows that I don't use these 3 subkeys anymore, that I've got brand new subkeys. And we also use the master key, so yeah, use it for administration of your own keys, and you use it for signing other people's keys. So whenever I get a couple of people's keys together and I reach out to them and go, hey, can I verify your key? And I verify the fingerprint, and I trust that it's really them because I've known them for a couple of years. I know that Wasabi really is Wasabi. If Wasabi's not Wasabi, he's been running a really long con with me because I've known him as Wasabi as long as I've known him. Then I'd kind of go to my offline computer, I'd plug the drive in, I'd rehydrate the master key, which is this one here. I would sign Wasabi's key, then I'd shut that computer down, and I'd unplug a separate USB drive, which I would have put the signed key of Wasabi's onto. I'd bring it to my online computer, plug it in, import it onto my computer, send it out to the key service, and away she goes. It has a couple of benefits. The main one is that if and when Wasabi was to do the whole fingerprint dance with me and call me up and verify the fingerprint and then sign my master key and upload the signature to key servers, if I need to generate new subkeys, for example, I get a whiz-bang new YubiKey that, much like my master key, will now support 4K keys across the board. I can revoke these, generate new ones, send the new ones out to the key servers. Wasabi can download those keys and he doesn't need to re-verify my master key ID. He can, based on the fact that the new subkeys would have been signed by my very own key as part of this bundle, trust that it's still my keys. And anyone who trusts Wasabi's decision that it really is me can continue to trust that it's really me, and so on and so forth. The main reason for separation of duties and keeping that master key offline is if my machine gets hacked and someone steals, I mean, my GPG key is probably the least of my worries, but if someone stole all my data, then I could just kind of use the revocation system to revoke the old subkeys that may have been stolen if these subkeys were on my computer. They're actually only on my YubiKey. And I can then generate new keys with this offline master key, which can't be stolen if someone pops my box. If someone can pop my box and then remotely access an offline hard drive, then they can steal my key. But that's probably not within the reach of many attackers. So that's why you separate them out and have a certify key at the very top here, which you keep the private part of offline and have multiple subkeys. And you probably could, I think there is a reason why you'd never have the signature and the encrypt one the same. I think it's because if you encrypt too much stuff or you sign too much stuff, then you can start to leak key information that people may use to cryptographically attack it or something like that. I don't really know. I don't know why you keep these two separate necessarily, but just what you do. But it doesn't matter anyway, because as long as everyone knows me by this, they can download my keys off key servers and they get the whole bundle anyway. And they don't even need to know what these 3 IDs are. Everything just, their tools should hide it from them. And when they encrypt stuff to me, it should just work. So hopefully that answers that question. Buried in the bush, indeed. Indeed, I've got a map somewhere. Let's get on with the demo. We'll do revocation certificates. Maybe next time. So, what Alice can do is she can do GPG -- armor -- export and put her fingerprint there, or she can put her ID there or her name there. It doesn't really matter. If Alice does that, then she gets this base 64 data. If she didn't do the -- armor, then she gets this binary data, and my terminal would have gotten all stuffed and all corrupted and bad things would have happened. If Alice does the -- armor, it'll base 64 encode it for her, which makes it copy pastable. Because what she can do is she can copy paste that into Instant Messenger, or put it on a text file and give it to Bob, or email it, or what have you. Tie it around the leg of a carrier pigeon, and then Bob can type it back in when he gets it. This is just, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to upload Alice's key to key servers, because it's an example key, and I don't really want to go polluting key servers with that if I don't need to, because think of the cyber whales. So I've just copied that. Bob can go ahead and create a text file, alice_key.txt, because he just wants to type it in, paste, there we go. So Bob, this being 2 different machines, Bob just got Alice's public key. Hence the joke goes that you just gave me your private key, because if Alice had instead did I think it's -- export - secret. Export secret keys. Export secret keys. She actually needs to unlock it. The idea being, if Alice had done that instead and sent the private key, then she's just given her private key to Bob, and she now has to create new keys, and Bob can decrypt all of her old stuff. Don't go giving your private key to people, and when people give you their public key, always tell them, hey, you just gave me your private key. Thanks to Liam for that timeless joke. So Bob's got a file called alice_key.txt. He saves it, and now he has a file, alice_key.txt. So what he can do is gpg -- import alice_key.txt, and based on that base 64 encoded text file, Bob now has Alice's key. If Bob did gpg -- list - keys, he now has 2 keys on his computer. An ultimately trusted key for Bob example, and an unknown key for Alice example. Bob can now do gpg -- armor -- export. Just as an example, instead of actually pasting his full fingerprint in, he can type his email address, bob@example.com, and there is Bob's key. We copy Bob's public key. Alice puts it in a text file and saves it as bobkey.txt. Alice then does gpg -- import bobkey.txt. does GPG dash dash list dash keys. Alice now has a public key for Alice example, which is ultimately trusted because it is her own key. Bob, she also has a key for Bob example, which is of unknown trust. But if Alice, let's just full screen Alice for a second, if Alice, instead of doing list keys, had done GPG dash dash list dash secret dash keys, she only has one secret key for Alice, which makes sense. She doesn't have Bob's secret key. So now the two have exchanged keys. We can start to use them. Alice can do something like this. Vim message to bob.text. Hi there, Bob. Hope you're well. Kind regards, Alice. And save it. So now she has message to Bob. What Alice can do is GPG. Again, we'll do dash dash armor. For everything that you do with GPG, if it's going to create an output, you can optionally ASCII armor the output, which gives you base 64, which is just going to make copy pasting between these two machines rather than shuffling files around, and because they do both share a directory, they can both see Twitch, but whoops, that'll break the illusion if I use that directory. So I'm not going to use that directory until I really have to. Alice has a file called message to Bob. Alice can do, and by the way, remember, keep in mind this here is, actually I should have, what I should do is, sorry, this is part of the prompt. I probably should have done this. There we go, that makes it more clear that it's part of the prompts, I guess. There we go. Alice can do GPG dash dash armor dash dash encrypt message to Bob. And upon doing that, Alice gets asked for the recipients. It says enter the user ID and with an empty line. Even though it says enter the user ID, you may think ID is in those nasty hex digits. She can just do Bob or bob@example.com. If she had multiple people called Bob with different keys, with different suffixes to their email, but they all started with Bob, if Alice just put Bob in, then it may just pick the first in the list, I think. So to disambiguate, you should put the whole email address. My microphone's drooped. Hang on, I've got to fix this microphone up. Joys of secondhand microphone stands. So Alice can put in bob@example.com for the recipient's email address for the recipient's user ID. Enter. Alice now gets a nasty error or a warning. GPG, blah, there is no assurance that this key belongs to the named user. Blah, 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 blah. It is not certain that the key belongs to the person named in the user ID. If you really know what you're doing, then you can say yes. This should give Alice pause. This really is like a certificate error in your browser. When you see this, you shouldn't just hit yes. This is prompting you to go and do the right thing and validate Bob's identity. Use this key anyway. Let's go no. That scared Alice a bit too much. So we'll just go Control C and get out of that encryption. So now Alice is left with this. Bob's fingerprint. What she really should be doing is doing either GPG dash dash, I think it's L sign. It's L sign key. That's a local signature that will never ever be exported to key servers and stuff. Or she can do dash dash sign dash key, which if she was to upload stuff to key servers, would actually export her signature out to the world. Since we're not going to be uploading keys tonight anyway, let's just go and do sign key. So Alice can do GPG dash dash sign dash key for bob@example.com. We then get this. We get some stuff about Bob's key. Get some more stuff about Bob's key. Some more stuff about Bob. This key is due to expire on this date. Are you sure that you want to sign this key with your key Alice example, and then some stuff about your key. This is really indicative of GPG, just horrible user interface. The important thing is this here. For Bob example, this is the primary key fingerprint. What you should be doing is getting on the blower with Bob and going, Bob, what's your key fingerprint? And Bob should do gpg-list-keys Bob and read that out there. To make it easier to read, Bob can do gpg I think it's just -- fingerprint. Yep. And it kind of puts the spaces in there for him. Same data, just got spaces in it. Bob then reads this out over the phone. Alice compares to make sure that that there is the same thing, which at a glance it looks like it is, and it makes sense because we just did copy paste stuff. But yep, that fingerprint on Alice's display matches the fingerprint that Bob thinks his key has. Based on that, if Alice thinks that Bob example really is Mr. Bob example with this email address and is willing to make a public statement to that effect, if she really has confirmed that that is Bob's fingerprint, then she says, yes, I really want to sign it with my key. Alice gets asked for her passphrase. Whenever you're using your private keys, if they have passphrases, which they should, you will be prompted for your passphrase. If you get sick of putting your passphrase in, use GPG agent. Much like SSH agent holds onto your SSH keys and stops you from putting your passphrase in each time, GPG agent will hold onto your GPG keys and stop you from being asked for your GPG passphrase. For the time being, we'll go Alice 123. And we don't really get much in the way of fanfare, but Alice has now signed Bob's key. We can do gpg-list-sigs, and we get this output. We can see that Alice's key is signed by Alice. Boring. Self-signature. We can see that Bob's key is signed by Bob. Boring. Self-signature. And Bob's key is signed by Alice. Interesting. You can see that Bob's subkey is only signed by Bob, because subkeys don't get signed by anyone except the master key that they belong to. Alice has no need for signing Bob's subkey. Alice just needs to sign Bob's master key to say that it really is Bob's key. And we can see that before it used to say that Bob had unknown trust. Bob now has full trust. This word full actually means something. What you can do is, I think it's gpg-edit- we're getting really into the weeds now. Go edit key for Bob. And then I think we go help. Then we go trust. So if Alice was to edit Bob's key and go trust, she can choose to trust fully. She can choose to trust ultimately. You should never trust anyone else ultimately. You're the only one who should have ultimate trust. You can say that you trust Bob fully, which generally means that if Bob was to sign anyone else's key, then it means that you trust that assertion. If you say marginal, then you require a couple of people to agree before a decision's actually made. So that's what the word full means. The word full doesn't actually mean that it's just been signed. It actually means that you've got full trust in Bob's capability for making good life decisions when it comes to signing keys. Anyway, we've now got full trust for Bob, and we know that Bob's key really is Bob's key, or at least Alice does. So now Alice can do gpg-armor-e for encrypt, message to Bob, and you get asked for the user ID. You go bob@example.com, and then it says current recipients is this here. Enter the user ID, end with an empty line, just go enter, and we're done with like no fanfare. If we were to look at message to Bob, we see we've got two files now, message to bob.txt, message to bob.text.asc. If we look at that second file, it's another lot of base 64 GPG nonsense. It's actually a PGP message. It's an encrypted PGP message. So now we can't read that because it looks like gibberish. In fact, okay, we'll get to the fun bit in a minute. Let's go and copy this. And Bob can create a text file, message from Alice. .text because he's just going to put it in a text file because he doesn't know what extension to give it. He's just kind of copy pasted it out of Slack or from an email or however he got it. Keep in mind, your email client can generally do this encryption decryption automatically if you trust the plugin. I'm choosing to do it manually for point of demonstration. So Bob can paste this text into a text file, save it, and do GPG --decrypt, or I think you can just do -d. Do --decrypt. Message from Alice. Bob get asked for his passphrase. We go Bob123, and we get some status GPG. It was encrypted with this key ID, which is actually going to be Bob's key ID on this date. Never trust this date, by the way. If someone's encrypting stuff to you, they can always mess with their own system clock or just fake the date. Don't trust the dates in GPG. They can be faked. And we get the message, "Hi there, Bob. Hope you're well. Kind regards, Alice." Cool. So Bob just got an encrypted message from Alice. Fun facts. If Alice was to do GPG --decrypt message to bob.text.asc, which is the actual file that the encryption produced, she can't read it. Just because you wrote the encrypted thing and encrypted it to someone else doesn't give you permission to decrypt it, which can be really handy for some people. For example, let's say you're about to cross a national border somewhere and you've got a supply of documents or a bunch of files that you need to give to someone on a USB drive. What you can do is you can encrypt it to them, save the encrypted copy to the USB drive, securely delete the original documents. And if you get pulled up at the border and they say decrypted documents, you actually can't. It was encrypted for someone else. So just because you did the encryption doesn't give you any special permission to decrypt it. What you should do is, let's just go and delete that encrypted file. If you want to be able to read the stuff that you wrote to someone else, then when you encrypt it, when you encrypt a message to Bob, and it says enter the user ID, we'll go Bob and Alice. It's often a good idea to put yourself in there as well, just so you can decrypt later on what you wrote to someone. But in some circumstances, like borders with people with guns, it might be a bad idea. Empty line, there we go. Alice can now go GPG --decrypt message to bob.text.gpg. Oh, .gpg means I forgot to armor it. See, I didn't do --armor, which is interesting because now we can do xxd for message to bob.text.gpg. You can see that it's a binary file with all sorts of weird and wonderful bytes. So if you forget to do --armor, you can't copy paste it. And if I was to do cat this file here, I'd get binary garbage in my terminal and it would be a bad day. But now Alice can do GPG --decrypt message to bob.text.gpg. That's weird that Alice didn't get asked for a passphrase. Right, okay, so that looks like GPG on Debian automatically starts up. These are two different containers, so two different process IDs. Looks like you get a GPG agent for free with GPG2. Interesting. That's why Alice didn't get asked for a passphrase, because she actually had an agent still alive. I'm guessing the agents probably time out after a few minutes, because we did get... No, maybe it's just... Yeah, ignore me. Ignore me. That's encrypting and decrypting messages. Any questions about encrypting and decrypting messages? Good to have around HSRU. No, you're right, I didn't. I kind of put it together quickly. We've been going for a couple of hours now, so it might be a bit hard to catch up, but we're in the depths of it now. I'm one cheeky storm away from losing my keys, indeed. Is everyone following so far? Does that kind of make sense as to where we're at? I'll take the silence to mean that the lag is killer and that it might vaguely make sense. You know what, let's take a quick 5-minute break. That's probably been enough to digest so far. When we get back, what are we going to talk about? We'll talk about signing. Talk about message signing after the break. So please digest what's been said so far. If there's any questions, queries, concerns, please speak up. Please let me know. I don't want to blast ahead and have people who aren't following with anything. I want to make sure it's all understood. So if there's any questions, queries, concerns, speak up in the chat. Let's take 5 minutes, and if you need to grab a drink of water, what have you, now's the time. I'll see you on the other side. Alrighty, let's get this back on the road. I am super surprised I have not been DDoSed since accidentally opening that that URL. I shouldn't have. I was totally expecting to get booted offline by now. That's a pleasant surprise. If you missed it earlier, someone popped in and said, hey, can you hack such and such an IP? I tried to Google search it and accidentally browsed to it. My bad. But yeah, it seems as though even if someone's got my IP address, that nothing bad's happened yet. I guess we'll see when my mail spool gets dropped tomorrow. So we left off. My mic's... this stand keeps drooping. 1 second. This is drooped again. Gonna have to see if I can figure out why that keeps happening. So Jardet's up as well. Maybe you're soaking up some of the packets that would have been going my way. So we left off with Alice able to send an encrypted message to Bob using a ASCII armored file. We learnt that if you encrypt something to someone else and you don't supply that GPG should also encrypt it to you, you can't decrypt it after the fact, which could be interesting depending on your needs. Now we're going to get into message signing. So, message signing. The big asterisk to put after the idea of message signing, and by the way, I never ever sign my emails. My emails I send, they're pretty loose, they're pretty fast. I don't really care if people really know it was me who sent them. I don't tend to care if they get tampered en route. I kind of don't want to get held to what I type in an email cryptographically. So I never sign my emails. I sign a lot of my Git commits. Some of them I do not sign. That is a conscious decision. For example, if you go and have a look at my advisories repo on GitHub, you'll see that I don't sign my commits there. That's because I'm happy for people to see my security advisories. I kind of want plausible deniability. If someone's angry with anything that I wrote, I can always say, it wasn't me, my GitHub was hacked. I didn't sign that commit. So there's a reason why I don't sign those commits. And you should make the decision to sign something very carefully. It's just like you wouldn't sign every single contract that came across your desk. You shouldn't sign every single bit of communication you send if there is no pressing need to. A lot of people do not sign their emails. That is very intentional. Fun little sidetrack. I'm not sure about Signal. It used to be called Text Secure. Now it's called Signal, the mobile phone secure messenger. I'm guessing it works like OTR. OTR, if you're old enough, you'll remember, is something that we all used to use for our instant messenger. It would be end-to-end crypto for instant messenger. OTR had a really interesting property called non-repudiation. Stuff was signed, but you could repudiate what you said. What it would do is it would be based on the same sort of principle to GPG, and Signal's based on the same sort of principle to GPG. If you open up Signal, then you can have a look at your fingerprint and you compare your finger you still use every day. Awesome, that's cool, Jardeth. With Signal, you can kind of compare fingerprints and that kind of stuff through the user interface. Same thing you do with your GPG fingerprints. OTR, same thing. You get fingerprints. You can compare fingerprints out of band and make sure it's the right thing for the person you're talking to. And then what it would do is it encrypts. And basically encrypts and then base 64 encodes the encrypted payload. So if someone's spying on your IM traffic, they only see a bunch of base 64 nonsense. Only with the key can you decrypt it after it has been base 64 decoded. So it does encryption for confidentiality. It also does signing. In a sense, I'm pretty sure it does. I should look into the actual protocol. OTR ensures message integrity and ensures message authenticity, in as much as when you get a message, you know that it wasn't modified in transit, and you know it really came from the person who appears to have sent it, as long as you trust their key fingerprint. But what it does is OTR actually... What do we got going on in chat? Let's not paste HTML. Let's not be doing that. Hey, I don't know where that's going, but let's not do that. OTR will actually leak the signing key to the person. I'm not sure if it does it immediately or if it does it with the next message, but basically OTR will intentionally leak the signing material to the recipient for a good reason. OTR gives you plausible deniability regarding what you said. Also, it's also called repudiation. That's where I'm going with this. It is off the record. It's signed, but you leak the signing key to the recipient, such that if they said later on, you said such and such to me, and I know it really was you because it was signed by you, you can go, no. OTR bakes in the leaking of the signing key to you in a way that you know that I signed it because it's based on a property of my master key, but I also leaked you the signing key for that message. You could have crafted it yourself. So the protocol actually builds in the ability for the recipient to have crafted your signed messages, which in any other instance like GPG would be totally not what you want. But in the case of OTR, which is a very kind of casual instant messenger communication platform, the fact that it does give you plausible deniability is actually really, really nice. It means you can't be held accountable for what you said. Hence why it is actually called off the record, because it is off the record. GPG signing doesn't give you that property, so don't sign stuff unless you want to be held accountable for what you said. And if there's a pressing need, like if, for example, you were sending someone, hey, please install my public SSH key on that server that you're setting up, you probably want to sign that message, and they should probably check the signature on that message to make sure that someone hasn't slipped in a dodgy key or spoofed the email from you and got the wrong SSH key installed on the server. That's where email signing is a really good idea. Hello Twitch. Good luck, Entro Zenod. Let's see where you're going with this. Curious. So that's signing when it's useful and when you don't want to be doing it. Anyway, Alice wants to write. Let's actually look at message to Bob. Let's say Alice wants to sign this message before sending it to Bob. She has, I think, about 3 different ways of signing it, because why not? Let's have a bunch of different ways of doing stuff. Let's go and delete this encrypted copy of the message. Alice wants to sign this. The first way of signing it is called clear signing. It's the one that you've probably seen in the past on forums, on things like the shadow brokers stuff. They kind of tend to clear sign their stuff before they put it on Pastebin or what have you. Alice can do GPG -- clear sign message to Bob, put in her passphrase, and we're done. So the message to Bob stays the same as it was, but you also get this .asc, means it's been ASCII armored. With clear signing, you get ASCII armoring for free. It automatically base64 encodes it. So if we have a look at this message to bob.text.asc, we get this. Begin PGP signed message. Hash is SHA-256. Hi there, Bob. Hope you're well. Kind regards, Alice. Begin PGP signature. Bunch of garbage, and PGP signature. As XKCD once wisely said, if you want to validate that someone's PGP signature on an email is correct, just look for the base64 garbage at the end of the message. If it's there, it's probably really signed properly. Love that comic. So now Alice can actually confirm her own signature. She can do GPG -- verify message to bob.text.asc, and we get some output. The signature was made this date, this time. Don't trust that, because people who sign messages can spoof the time. It was done using the RSA key blah. It's a good signature from Alice example. Warning, it's not a detached signature. The file message to bob.text was not verified. That's just a kind of handy little warning. It's not an error, it's a warning saying that GPG's going, I can see you've got that file there, the text file, and that file there, the ASC file. Just because you verified the signature on this file doesn't mean I actually compared the contents of message to bob.text at all. What it means is that this message here was signed by Alice, and there's the signature there. It means that this file has nothing to do with the check that just got done. Cool, so Alice has actually managed to verify that signature. So now if we just go and copy this here, copy, go to Bob's machine and go vim message from Alice. Let's just delete this encrypted copy here, paste in the signed copy, there it is. Bob can then do gpg -- verify message from alice.txt, and Bob gets this. Signature made, this date, this time, using the RSA key, blah. Again, don't trust the time and date, it can be spoofed. It's a good signature from Alice example, blah, 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 unknown. Remember, because Bob doesn't trust Alice's key yet. He hasn't done the fingerprint comparison. Warning, this key is not certified with a trusted signature. There is no indication that the signature belongs to the owner. Primary key fingerprint. There is Alice's fingerprint. But this warning here should scare Bob. I mean, the signature really came from this key belonging to this claimed user identity. This key is in Bob's keyring. As Bob, let's do gpg -- delete - keys. Alice. Yep. So we've gone and deleted Alice's key from Bob's keyring. If we do the verify again, then we get can't check signature, no public key. So Bob can't even validate the signature without possessing Alice's key. But if we do gpg -- import, I had a file called Alice key. Yep, Alice key. So we'll go and re-import that key into Bob's keychain. Do the verify again. Bob can verify that the signature is good, but GPG is warning there's no way that we know if the key really belongs to Alice, because there's no trust chain from anyone that we've signed the key of onwards to Alice. So now Bob knows that he needs to do the fingerprint thing. So Bob does gpg -- fingerprint Alice, and we get the fingerprint here. Alice does gpg -- fingerprint Alice, and gets her own fingerprint here, reads it out over the phone. Bob reads this here, confirms that this is really Alice's fingerprint. Bob does have the correct key for Ms. Alice example. Bob then does gpg -- I think we did sign key before as Alice. Bob can do a -l sign key, which means that it's an unexportable signature that won't be sent to key servers, which is just something different for us to try. Bob does L-sign key for Alice. He gets this awful message here that talks a bit about Alice's key, gives him the fingerprint again. Bob really should double check to make sure. Call Alice up again and go, hang on, let me just get that signature that fingerprint one more time. Was it really blah, 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 blah? Alice can go, yes, stop calling me, and just sign the damn key. Bob goes, yep, I'm going to make that signature. I do want to say that this really is Mr. Bob example's key, that this is the fingerprint. It really does belong to him. The fingerprint, I've double checked it, I've triple checked it on the phone, and signs the key. Bob needs his passphrase, Bob123. These passphrases, by the way, it should be clear that they protect against someone who's stolen all your key files out of your home directory. Much like an SSH passphrase on a key, you need the passphrase to decrypt the key material. So the passphrase protects you if your laptop gets stolen and your disk ain't encrypted and your shit wasn't on YubiKeys. The passphrase gets put in. Bob now trusts that Alice's key really belongs to Alice. Bob can again verify that message, and this time he gets good signature from Alice. It's a fully trusted signature. We got a bit of GPG maintenance garbage here. This is all to do with how many ultimate people trust it, have signed it, how many full people, how many marginal people, blah, blah, blah. This is all to do with those metrics that we saw before. Inside GPG -- edit - key for Alice, Bob can choose how much he trusts Alice to actually make key signatures. I'm not going to bother going too far into that. You can decide how much you trust your friends to not be stupid, and assign them either full trust or marginal trust. Don't ever trust your friends ultimately. Ultimate trust is just for yourself. So if Bob does that verify again, then we don't get all that maintenance information. GPG every now and then just has to kind of refresh its trust chain information, which is why we got that debug stuff. Now we just get, yeah, good signature from Alice. And Bob can now verify clear signed signatures made by Alice. And again, a clear signed signature looks like this. You get the begin thing, you get the end thing, you get the begin thing, you get the base 64. It's all in the one document. I'm going to remove that file, message to bob.asc, and show a different way of signing stuff. GPG dash dash, I think it's just dash dash sign. Yep, make a signature. So Alice can sign message to Bob. Now this one does either have to be ASCII armored or not ASCII armored. You can pick between them. Let's do armored. Let's go dash dash armor. So we're going to sign message to bob.text. And we're done. What did we get? We got a file called message to bob.text.asc. We cat that file and we get begin PGP message. Now, this can be a trap. If you do dash dash sign, you might look at this and go, oh, that's just like the stuff that went at the bottom of the file before. It's just the signature. I could safely, for example, go and put this on Pastebin, and then people can just kind of get the signature. Then if they get the message, they can put them both together and do the verification. This actually has the message and the signature combined. So Alice can do this. GPG dash dash verify message to bob.text.asc, and she can verify that it's a good signature. But the file message to bob.text was not verified, because Alice can also do dash dash decrypt message to bob.text.asc and get the plain text, because the message itself actually gets baked into this file. And that's something that I actually didn't realize for a while. I didn't fail. I didn't post something I shouldn't have, but I was explaining PGP to someone, and someone overheard and said, no, you're wrong. That's not just the signature, that's actually the message. So that has two consequences. First of all, you may think you're only just sharing a signature. You're actually sharing the plain text message as well. It's not encrypted. It's hidden inside this base 64 somewhere. The second consequence is if you're trying to do some sort of code signing and sign a ISO or something, then if you created a signature like this, you're going to have like a 700 meg ISO and a 700 meg signature, because the actual ISO is baked into the base 64. Good luck copy pasting a whole ISO's worth of base 64 stuff into Instant Messenger just so your friend can verify the authenticity and the integrity of an ISO. It actually has the content built in. And that brings us to the third kind of signature. GPG dash dash detach dash sign message to Bob. So I've gone and deleted this 2-in-1 message here. You can do GPG dash dash detach dash sign the message, enter, and the GPG agent is currently unlocked. We can now go cat message to bob.text.sig. Actually, you know what? Let's go and remove that. Let's go and do an armored detached signature, because I don't want to go and look at binary data. So do dash dash armor. So now if we cat message to bob.text.asc for ASCII armored, then we get a signature. It's not a message anymore, it's just a signature. Now we can do GPG dash dash verify, give it the detached signature, and I think you have to give it the actual plain text message as well. Enter, and what it does is it uses this signature to check the validity of this file, and it's a good signature. You can't do GPG dash dash decrypt on a detached signature because there's no plain text there for it to recover. Now, tampering with messages. Just to prove the concept, let's redo all three scenarios. Let's redo 2 scenarios. Screw the signatures, they suck. Let's do the detached signatures. and the clear sign. Remember, clear sign was that all-in-one horrible ASCII nonsense at the bottom option. Let's play with this. So we've got this message to Bob, and we've got this detached ASCII armored signature. If we go and edit message to Bob.text, even if we do something as simple as putting an extra line at the end of the file, just like that, extra line underneath Alice. If we save that, gpg verify message to Bob.text.ascii armored, and we're going to verify message to Bob, we get a bad signature because the file has been tampered with, possibly by a man in the middle, possibly by file system corruption, possibly by whatever you're signing to try to protect against. If we go and edit message to Bob.text and get rid of that blank line at the bottom, then the verification is fine. It's a good signature again. If we go and edit the message and say, hi there Bob, hope you're horrible, kind regards Alice, then the file will no longer verify. So that's how signatures are able to be used to verify that the message hasn't been tampered with. If we go and edit that message back, hope you're well, GPG verify, then there we go. We got another example down here. This message from Alice was that clear signed one from Bob to Bob. If we go and edit this message from Alice.text, hi there Bob, hope you're bad, and then do the verification again, we get a bad signature. Pretty simple stuff. If the message gets tampered with, the signature is no longer valid. If we go and edit it back to hope you're well, then the signature is once again good. So the signature provides integrity, stops someone tampering with the contents and changing the words you are using. Or the code, in the case of code signing. Or the commit, in the sense of git commits, stops someone from fiddling with the code you checked into the, or you submitted to, you pushed to the git repository. The second thing it gives you on top of integrity is authenticity. Bob can use it to verify that it really was Alice that wrote this message, based on the fact that only Alice should have the private key to create the signature, and it should be the case that you verified the fingerprint out of band on the telephone. The second thing you get is authenticity. It really was Ms. Alice Example who wrote this message, which, going back to the original thing, can be kind of painful. If you sign something that you later become embarrassed of, people can post it on forums, they can put it on Pastebin, they can say, look at this dumb thing that this person signed. It can be a bad time. It can probably also be used in court. You know, if someone says you said a defamatory thing in an email and you signed it, then your lawyer can no longer say that there's no proof that you wrote it, because there is proof. You then have to argue, oh, someone stole my keys, which might be a bit more difficult for your lawyer to argue. Not that you'd be lying in court, you'd just have your lawyer do their job. There is no way to tell which part of the message was tampered with. Not as far as I know. I don't think it's kind of like they built. I'm guessing there's no error correction, or I'm guessing you can't tell which part of the file was tampered with. It's going to come down to the fact that when you sign something, what you do is you probably hash the whole file, and then sign the hash with your PGP key. So unless they did piecewise hashing, where they kind of hashed every megabyte, then you signed the hash of every megabyte, then maybe you could kind of narrow it down to there's a problem with this particular megabyte. But I doubt it. I don't think GPG would do that. I think it's all or nothing. But good question, Jardeth. So that's signatures. We should probably start wrapping it up. We could do signing git commits if people think that's interesting. I'm going to save for the next stream all the GPG best practices, things like revocation certificates. I'm going to drill into your heads the idea of key expiry, because that's super important. We'll go through the whole offline environment, boot CD, generate your master key offline, keep it offline, blah blah blah. We'll go through that next stream, because that could take quite a while. Next stream we might go and summarize and have a read through of things like Gruck, Nagi, the Rise Up, and the Debian best practices for GPG, and I'll pick out the stuff that I think is important. You should read all those documents in their entirety. Gruck and Nagi's stuff is really quite entertaining. The Debian and Rise Up stuff is kind of dry, but you should definitely go and read all those resources if you're interested in PGP. The most important thing you should do is do a couple of dry runs of this, especially once we go through the how to do the offline stuff. Try it a couple of times, do it one weekend, spend a couple of hours kind of reading all the documents and then doing it and then exporting this and copying that, and then come back to it next week and go, did I do it correctly? Can I find any problems? Did I forget to set my digest preferences when I created the key? And we'll go through digest preference best practices next stream, because you might stuff it up. And what you should do is spend a couple of weekends kind of thinking about this, reading about this, practice, dry runs, figure out the problems, figure out the mistakes, redo it next weekend until you're kind of getting it right, because PGP key mistakes stick with you. If you go and go to the effort of taking it to Sec Talks, which you should totally do, we should totally have key signing parties at Sec Talks in Australia. If you go and get people to sign your keys, then in 6 months' time you realize that you made a mistake and you accidentally have your master key on your laptop, you've now got two options. One, go, whoops, I should delete that master key off my laptop and pretend it never happened, and pretend that no one played with my laptop while it was unlocked at Sec Talks at one time and stole my master key. The second option is you revoke that entire key, create a new one. And that's the paranoid thing to do. That's the right thing to do. And that's then a whole bunch of pain, because you then got to go back to all your friends again and get them to sign your key again. It's better to do the dry runs and get it right before you publish your key and before you get your friends to sign your key. Better to make the mistakes often early on, fix them before you then start to go into production, basically, with your keys. That sucks. Kiwi was good fun this year, and yeah, it's a shame that it's the last one for the next little while at least, or forever at most. So it would have been good to have you there, Jay Rosner. This is actually it was my first one this year. Every other year I've been busy, and I'm so glad I wasn't busy this year. I'm so glad I could make the time to be there. It's like the past couple of years I've been at call-in training, which no regrets. Call-in training was great, but at the same time, I'm bummed I only ever went to one Kiwi. Better one than none, though. So yeah, we'll go through best practices next stream, or maybe not next stream, but maybe the next PGP stream. I don't really want to bore everyone with 2 PGP ones in a row. We'll be sick of PGP if we do it too quickly. Or maybe it's worth getting it done before it's all fresh in all our minds. But as I was saying, give this a couple of dry runs, give it a go, make some mistakes, fix them before you go into production with your keys. Let's do Git. Let's do some signed Git commits as Bob, just to kind of demonstrate the interesting uses of PGP. How do we set up Git signed commits? It's been a while since I actually set up my GPG config, so we should be doing it from scratch. So that there should look familiar. This here should look familiar, that it's a comment on a key, which we have learnt to not do. So don't do this. Just use your everyday key for Git. Don't create a key and put a comment there. This is important to note. Git is cryptographically secure. When you've got Git, but if you haven't used Git, by the way, this is how it kind of works. Let's just jump into a temp directory. We do git init. Cool. So we've got this Git repository. Let's go on full screen Bob. Git status. There's nothing to commit. Let's just stuff Alice. Hang on. Let's Z shell. This prompt's annoying me. Let's go and turn this off real quick. There we go. No more Bob stuff. I just wanted to turn off this little Bob because it was interfering with this stuff here. So we've got a blank Git repository. This isn't going to be a full Git tutorial. It'll be just enough if you haven't used Git before to see where the keys fit in. So brand new spanking fresh Git repo. Git status says there's nothing to commit. Git log says that there's no commits yet. Bob can go and do copy Etsy issue to the current directory. We see there's a new file called issue. Bob can do git status. See that there's one untracked file called issue. Bob can add issue. Bob can do git commit -v for verbose, and we need to do git first time setup. So we'll do this. Git config global user email is bob@example.com. You should only need to do this config once, by the way. Name is Bob example. So now we do that git commit -v for verbose again, and it's going to pop up Vim and tell us that this is what we're doing. We're creating a new commit with a new file called issue, and we added a file called issue with this contents here. This is the verbose stuff. It just gives us a little preview of what we're actually adding. Added issue file. So there we go. We've got a git repo with one commit. We go git log. There's the commit. Cat issue. And there's the file. If Bob wanted to edit the issue file, he can edit issue. Change it to Debian GNU blah blah blah. Hello world. This here is a little Vim add-on I've got to tell me which files I'm changing in a Git repo. The little pluses mean it's new lines. Bob can do git status and see that he's modified the issue file. Bob can add the issue file, git commit -v, and we can see the changes are that he's added these two lines, added 2 lines to issue file. This here is the git commit message that comes up in the git log that explains all the different changes that you made to all the files. Git log, we can see that there's now 2 commits in the repo's history, and first commit was that we added the issue file, the next commit was that we added 2 lines to the issue file. That's all well and good. Let's say Bob goes and pushes these 2 commits out to GitHub as a brand new Git repository, as a brand new project, saying this is my project that has a garbage issue file with 2 extra lines in it. But let's say it was a big coding project and there was a whole bunch of code in there. And then let's say Alice, we're not going to go back to Alice's machine, but let's say Alice then cloned that Git repo. Let's say that Alice knows who Mr. Bob example is and is willing to run code written by Bob. Or let's say they're both collaborating on the project and Alice is willing to modify the code that Bob wrote, but she wants to make sure that it really is the same project that they're working on because it's sensitive stuff and she wouldn't want rogue information to have snuck into their project. She wants to verify that it really is Bob that created these 2 commits. Well, she can't. Because remember back when we actually set up Bob's Git settings? Bob just did this. Git config blah 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 bob@example.com. Git config blah 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 Bob example. This author information is just Bob set it up on his computer. And what's kind of scary, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you're looking at the Git log for a repo that you've cloned from GitHub, And you can see that the author was, let's say, Rob Fuller, or H.D. Moore, or Justin Stephen, or O.J. Reeves, or whoever it might be. GitHub doesn't verify this author information when you upload stuff to GitHub. Like, this is Git metadata. It is totally legal, and it actually makes sense from a workflow perspective to be able to push commits that have authorship information that says it was someone else who wrote the code, which might seem a bit scary, but consider the Linux kernel. Linux doesn't actually develop on GitHub. There is a GitHub repo for Linux, but it's just kind of a mirror of the Linux kernel's repository. Linux actually does Git differently to everyone else, which is weird to say because Git was invented by Linus Torvalds, the maintainer of the Linux kernel. Linus created Git to manage the kernel's source code. So you might say that we use GitHub differently to Linux, not that Linux uses it differently to us, because it was made by the Linux people, it was made by the Linux person. They use Git by doing this. Git show, copy this commit hash here. They actually email around this as a text file with all this nonsense here, blah blah blah. We've got some hashes here, we've got a hash here, we've got some information here, we've got a description here, we've got a diff here that actually shows the difference between two files. If we were to go git show this more recent hash, then we get a different looking diff. You know, we get the contents from before, but without the plus in front of it, because that line didn't change, but we get pluses in front of these lines. And Linux actually emails around. This is basically an old school patch file and an old school diff file, just with some extra headers on it and some extra metadata. And this is a single commit being shown using git show, and they just email that around on their mailing lists. And someone who works on the network code might submit a patch to the network development mailing list, and then the maintainer of the network component might see it, QA it, check it, make sure the commit looks okay. If they think it looks okay, then they actually sign it and send it on to the next person up the chain until it gets to Linus Torvalds when he merges it into the project. And when Linus merges it into the project, he needs to be able to retain the authorship information of all the sub developers. And they just email these around willy-nilly using email. I mean, they sign their stuff. But they need to be able to actually spoof the author. Because when Linus adds it to the mainline repo that everyone clones and then does their hacking based on, he needs to be able to spoof people's authorship information into the master repo. Same thing goes for GitHub, because for all GitHub knows, you have your own side channel where you accept email patches and emailed commits, and then you go and merge them on your computer and then push them out to GitHub and then actually pull request them across to the main repo, and then they land in the main repo. So as far as GitHub's concerned, you have to be able to spoof this author information. So if that's the case, and if you're willing to run code on GitHub authored by H.D. Moore, Mubix, OJ, myself, whoever it may be, if you can't trust these author fields, then how could you trust the project? And it does get more difficult than this, because if you want to run code by us, you'd better go and check that the author for every single commit was us. This is a bit of a contrived example, this whole willing to run code thing. But the idea is that Git didn't think of authorship information from the very beginning. It's metadata, but it's not actually authenticated in any way, because you can spoof the author field. So the solution to that is signed commits. So when you sign a commit, you're signing something that looks like this bundle here, that encompasses the commit ID. The commit ID, by the way, this here, I think is a hash of this information layered on top of every single commit back to the root of the project. I think the commit hashes, I haven't looked into how exactly they work, but I think that basically based on a unique hash, you know exactly what the diff was, this here, and the chain of commits that led up to that point. So maybe it just hashes all the commit IDs up to the head of the chain. I'm not 100% sure on the implementation, but this is a hash of this information and the entire chain leading up to this commit. So based on any one commit ID, if the tip commit ID was signed, then you can kind of get some idea that whoever signed that commit put it atop something else, and if you trust their decision to put the commit atop that, you can maybe trust the whole project. That's up to you though. So that is why you would sign a commit. As for how to sign commits, let's have a look. We've already seen this. We've already done that. Bob's already got a key. Bob now needs to do git config -- global user.signing key his key ID. Okay, cool. Bob can do that. So Bob's going to do gpg -- list - keys. He's going to do git config -- global user.signing key. This one. Bob's going to get his own key ID. Bam, put it in. Done. He's now set up Git for doing signed commits using his key. Now Git will use your key by default to sign tags and commits if you want. The keyword being if you want. Git won't automatically sign your commits for you. Let's say Bob edits issue again and goes hello again. Git add issue, git commit -v, not a signed commit. That commit won't be signed because by default Git will not sign your commits. Keyword being here, it'll sign your commits if you want. You don't. Git by default doesn't think you want to. Now we can do git log. I think it's -- show sig. Yep, show signature. There's no signature information in this log, so this really is not a signed commit. If ignoring tags for now, if we want to do a signed commit, here we go. Oops, signing commits. You do git commit. Ignore that. -S. Okay, -S is to sign the commit. Vim issue. This time we'll sign it. This time we'll sign the commit. Git add issue. Git commit -S -v for verbose, just so we can see what we're changing. We can see the diff down here. If we didn't do -v for the commit, we lose this context down here. When you're doing git commits, -v is super handy. It helps you see in your editor what you're actually about to commit, and it helps you go, oh, I left a file out, or oh, I didn't mean to change that line, or oh, I didn't mean to include that file in the commit. If you leave the -v out, then you lose all that context. So I always do -v so I can see what I'm actually doing in the commit. This time the commit will be signed because we did git commit -s -v. Save that. Ooh. GPG failed to sign the data. That ain't good. I was trying to be tricky up here. When I did this git config, I put in Bob's full signature, not his short ID. Maybe that was a bad idea. We can see we've still got that one uncommitted change. Maybe I need to do this. I thought Git would support the full signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go and put Bob's short ID there. Let's try that commit again. Let's try again. No, this is a signed commit. Let's try again, having configured Git to use the short ID. No, failed. What am I doing wrong? Why is it not signing my stuff? Git config global user.signing key. I haven't copied Alice's key or anything, have I? Glist keys. No, that's Bob's. That's Bob's key. Weird. Oh well, this is our first big fail for the night. Why is this signed commit not working? If we Google that error message for all those fails. Aha. So, Debian, I think in testing, recently changed the default GPG to be GPG version, GPG2, as we saw before. The top upvoted, the accepted answer for this Stack Overflow question, which perfectly stated our problem, said that when you've got GPG2, which replaces in some cases replaces GPG, GPG1 moves to GPG1. Looks like Git needs to have GPG1. Looks like Git breaks if it tries to use GPG and gets GPG2. So that's interesting. Very interesting that Git doesn't support GPG2, so if you've got GPG2 installed and it's replaced GPG, then you're boned for GPG commits until you update your git config to point to GPG1. This Docker container is based on Debian testing and it has picked up GPG2 as the default. Do I have GPG1 installed? No. I did see a mailing list post about this a couple of weeks ago. How do we get GPG1 on Debian these days? Yeah, so the GNU PG package on Jessie is GPG1, on Stretch, which is testing, is GPG2. How do we get GNU PG1 on Debian testing? Alright, so there's now a package called GNU PG1. Let's go and install it. Looks like if you want to do git signed commits, you need GNU PG1 installed if you run Debian testing. When you do stuff like this, it's always handy to read the output of your apt install, because sometimes you'll see that Debian does things like diversions and updates defaults to replace GPG with GPG1. So now we can do GPG version and see that installing GNU PG1 didn't change our default GPG version. But now we should have the GPG1 program. GPG1 version we can see is GNU PG version 1, which is the one that Git plays nicely with. So now we can do this. Git config --global gpg.program is GPG1, which will tell Git, don't just use GPG for signing, use GPG1, which should hopefully fix our problem. Let's go back and change that global user signing key to be Bob's full fingerprint, because, and I'll go through the fingerprint versus short ID problem as the last thing for tonight after this Git thing is done. So now, going back to where we were, git commit -v for verbose shows us we're about to sign the commit this stuff here, which updates the issue file to have this line in it. This will be a signed commit. No, it won't. We've got to do -S because we haven't turned on default Git signing yet. This will be a signed commit. Save that. Oh, we get errors again. Really? Really? Why do you have to be like this? Really? Really? Alright, that didn't answer our question. What else could the problem be? Maybe it's a GPG bug. Maybe I should update... Sorry, a Git bug. Maybe I should update Git on this Debian box. Nope, Git's already the latest version. Is it an outstanding Debian bug for Git on testing? This is why people run testing, because they love hitting bugs in software. Let's have a look at the bug reports for Git on Debian. Security bug, hey? Oh, from earlier this year. Why is this bug still open? Spam on the bug tracker. Love it. Interesting. Wonder why that bug's still open. Alright, is there any GPG bugs right now?
Everything changes.
Fine, GPG. Wonder if it's because that agent's running. Let's go and kill the GPG agent, hey? Try that signature again. Let's just go and rather than go the whole Vim thing, let's just go and put the commit message right in the command line. Nope, still failed. Why is Git failing to... Why is Git not... Let's strace this and see what it's doing. strace is a cool debug tool for when something's failing and you want to find out a bit more about what the program's doing. It'll actually dump all the syscalls and other stuff to the console. So here's the strace of what's happening. Why is it failing? Why is it failing? So we get this error message in the GPG output: skipped blah secret ... Okay, so strace is truncating a string. Error: GPG failed to sign the data. So this is the error that got written to the console. But what's this error here that GPG is spitting back at Git? So I now need to look up how to stop strace from truncating stuff. Man strace. Truncate. How do you dash S? I think it is dash S string size. Find dash S. Specifies the maximum string size to print. Can we just do strace dash S0? Yep, that looks like it turned off truncation. So where was that error? Where was that GPG error? Nope, dash S0 has truncated the hell out of everything. Dash S 999999. Alright, so where was that error? GPG skipped blah secret key not available. Signing failed, secret key not available. Is that not Bob's key ID? List keys blah. List secret keys blah. What just happened? So when I did a GPG list secret keys for Bob's short key ID, I got this diagnostic message that it started a migration from an earlier GNU PG version. It ported the secret keys from blah to GPG agent. The migration succeeded. That's weird because we generated the key using GPG2. But apparently the secret keys needed to be migrated before they could be used. Which is probably why all that Git stuff was failing. Let's go and change the Git config back from GPG1 to just GPG and see if GPG2 magically works for those commits now. Let's again do git commit -v. Interesting. So if you're getting these GPG Git errors, might be because you need to migrate your key, and you can migrate your key just by doing a GPG list secret keys blah. Let's also configure, just because, you know, let's YOLO configure everything all at once and see what breaks because we got too eager. Let's go and change this signing key back to Bob's full fingerprint, and we'll go through fingerprints versus IDs once this commit thing works, and then we can go to bed. So let's do that. Let's do git commit -v. This should finally be a signed commit. Save. And I didn't do a signed commit. I didn't do -S. Now we get to do how to fix your Git mistakes. What you can do is you can fix it up by doing -s --amend. So when you do a git commit --amend, it will redo your previous commit. For example, if you this is just a total sidetrack of how Git works. If you did whoops, instead of I forgot to put a dot at the end of the line, you could go, oh no, you could put the dot there, you could save the file, you could git add issue, and you could do a git commit --amend. And that would basically redo your most previous commit with the brand new changes. And rather than kind of having all these commits that are just like, I fucked up, I forgot to put a dot at the end of the line, you can actually fix your most previous Git commit, including, remember, always put -v there so you can see what you're doing. Go -S to actually sign this commit, and the amend will do two things. It'll make sure the commit's signed this time. It'll actually put the dot at the end of that line. But a warning, never ever use -- amend to fix a commit that you've already pushed to a public Git repository. If you've pushed stuff to a public Git repository where you know that other people may have seen it, don't amend it, redo it. People who amend their already pushed stuff are terrible people and they should feel bad. Never ever rewrite history on a public Git repository. Because if someone else has already pulled it, then you amend it and you push it again, you've both got divergent histories and it's going to be a huge pain in the butt to then fix that problem. I can see the chat, by the way, -- force for the win. Don't use -- force to push stuff if someone else may have gotten a copy. That's bad. Don't do that, Jay Rosner. Don't tell people to do that. That's bad. Bad. But we're going to YOLO this because we haven't pushed this commit anywhere. So we go and do the git commit -- event amend. When you amend stuff, you can change the commit message. You can change everything you want. You can sign it or not sign it. You can change the commit message. You can change the actual contents of the commit. Everything's fair game when you're amending. Again, don't amend stuff that you've already pushed. But we don't need to change the commit message, so we'll just save and quit from Vim. And we're back to GPG complaining. So we didn't fix the problem. Let's go back to GPG1 and try that. Let's try one more time. Don't change multiple things at once. Do the key migration and then try it, and then do this and then try that. Isolate your problem. Don't get greedy and try too much at once. Save and quit. Nope, GPG is still complaining. Signing key. Let's do that. Nope. Okay, problem's not fixed. GPG1 list keys for that ID. GPG1 list keys. Oh, great! GPG1 and GPG have totally different keychains. Man, that sucks. Computers are stupid. Alright. We can see that currently it appears as though maybe GPG2 and Git don't get along. Let's YOLO this demo. Let's do it on my actual host. Let's do it on Diablo with my PGP key. Git init. This is going to be a bit different because I have Git configured to always sign commits. So just bear with me. Copy etc issue into the current directory. Git add issue. Git commit -v for verbose. This will be assigned commit by default. Save and quit. I get a prompt for my YubiKey because my GPG signing key is on my YubiKey. Put in my passphrase. Now we can do git log, and we can see that it was a commit made by Justin Stephen, justin@justinstephen.com. Here is the commit ID, here is the date, here is the commit message. We can do a git show on this commit, and we can see the information about it, but we can't see whether it was signed or not. What we need to do is we need to do a git log. I think is it show signature? Yeah, git log --show -signature will show that it was signed on this date. Again, don't trust GPG dates, they can be spoofed. Using this key, good signature from Justin Stephen. Justin Stephen, here's my second email address, blah, blah, blah. So that is how signed commits are supposed to work. But it looks like Git and GPG2 don't get along right now. This made me happy. Thanks, Justin. Computers are stupid, Stephen. Stevens? No, Stephen. Stephen. Thanks, Parks. We're done. My histories, yeah. There's just like a friend of mine said yesterday, InfoSec is black and white. There's right and wrong, and you're wrong, I'm right. There's two Git histories, the right one and the wrong one. You've got the wrong one, I've got the right one. Again, people, it's fun to joke, don't use -- force if you've already pushed stuff. That is the cause of so much grief in the development world. Just tell a dev that you know, there's also another one like, you can do like alias YOLO equals git commit dash am YOLO git push dash f. Like if you go and create this shell alias YOLO, then you can just go in YOLO. It's going to do a git commit dash a means every single changed file in the current directory, commit it. Dash m means give the commit message. Commit message is YOLO, which means I don't care about you and your commit messages. I'm just going to commit the commit message YOLO. Then do a git push dash f. I don't care if my history is diverted from the server. I don't care if I'm about to overwrite someone's hard work. Push it and get rid of their stuff. Don't YOLO your gits. If it's your own repo and you're the only one working on a project, sure. Even if you've pushed it already, but it's your own repo, YOLO the commit messages, YOLO the pushes. You're only going to end up screwing your own history and having history full of YOLO. If you're collaborating on stuff, don't YOLO your git commits. You will make someone angry, and no jury in the world would convict them for what they're going to do to you. I'll do what I want, Parks. So that's how Git signing should have worked, but obviously there's currently some brokenness in Git, or brokenness in GPG2, or brokenness in what I did that caused us to not have any luck with that. Last thing for the night, let's talk about key IDs, hey? GPG list keys for Bob. Let's go and have Bob look at Bob's own keys. Doesn't Git save the changes anyway? If you do -f or -- force, it's going to have a couple of impacts. Work will be lost, in a way, sort of, kind of. Depends on your view of the world and how much of the rest of your workday you want to spend fixing the problem by consulting with your co-workers. Let's say there's like 3 people, for example's sake, working on some code. And let's say one person pushes a whole bunch of stuff to a repo. Like at the start of the day, everyone starts working on stuff. Alice finishes her work first, and she pushes up like 3 commits because she changed 3 different parts of the code to kind of produce her share of work for the day. So she pushes 3 commits. Bob has 1 commit because he's lazy. He doesn't actually separate his work into logical units. He just YOLOs his way across the entire code base, changes a bunch of files, and creates 1 commit. Then he tries to push, and if he was to do -f, there's a lot of reasons why he might do -f. We're going to keep it simple. Let's just say he does -f. This is a bad example, but for clarity's sake, this example's wrong, but bear with me. If he force pushes stuff to the server, he risks basically going, throw away all of Alice's work. I am the new head of the chain, and I'm going to base my stuff based on this commit back here. All the commits that Alice did, throw them away. My work goes on the server, and hers gets deleted. Alice's work is still on Alice's computer in her repo. She still has a copy of the 3 commits. But then let's say Carol comes along, she doesn't do a force push, she does the proper push, and she ends up kind of nesting her work on top of Bob's commit. End of the day, they kind of do their release, and Alice's feature didn't make it into the daily release, and Alice goes, what the hell, I wrote a bunch of code, I did 3 commits, but the website doesn't have my work on it. Bob's going to go, oh yeah, I force pushed. And Alice is going to go, great. Carol's based her work, and Carol changed some of the files I was working on, and now I've got to do the merge conflict and deal with Carol's changes, and Alice is going to have to push her code again. With more and more people, this could actually kind of become a really sticky problem in which people have to piece their work back together. So you're right, it won't lose data unless Alice's computer fails, because Alice will have a copy of her work still, but the team will have to actually piece their work for the day back together. that's a really simple but also contrived example. In other scenarios, force pushing can be really, really hard to recover from. Always be rebasing. Well, if Alice worked on 3 different parts of the code and did 3 unique, discrete units of work, she really should have 3 commits so that it can be reasoned about better, so the history makes more sense. But otherwise, yeah, rebase and squash your commits if they're useless garbage. Key IDs, Bob. So this is Bob's full key ID, also known as the fingerprint, just with the spaces taken out. It is a pretty disambiguous way of referring to Bob's key. There's also Bob's. Let's copy this. So that's Bob's fingerprint. Bob's short ID is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see that the short ID is just the very bottom of the fingerprint. What does Bob's long ID look like? List keys Bob -- format ID format ID key ID format equals long. This is Bob's long ID. So there's 3 different types of IDs. There's the short ID, the long ID, and then the full-blown fingerprint. Let's copy this one here. Let's line it up. Oops. So 3 different options. 3 different things basically for Bob to either put on his business card or put on his website or put in his email signature or read to you over the phone. He could be lazy and use his short ID everywhere. He could be pretty lazy but not that lazy and use his long ID everywhere. He could be super paranoid and do the right thing and use his full fingerprint everywhere. Why would he choose to be paranoid? Because, I mean, there's a good reason to be lazy. It's less things to write down. It's less things to get printed on your business card. It's less things to type in. But why would you want to be paranoid and use the full fingerprint? Remember, these are basically varying length digests or fingerprints or summaries or hashes of his key, of his master key. If he is to announce to the world that that is his key ID, it is scarily easy for someone to generate a bunch of keys until they collide with his short key ID. They're going to use the exact same name, the exact same email address on those randomly generated keys until they get a collision. I think it's called, there's an attack I think called Evil 32. So Evil 32 had a couple of components to it. First of all, GPG had a bug. And when you downloaded keys from a key server, if a man in the middle was between you and the key server, or you were talking to a malicious key server, then if you asked for the key ID and you gave the full-blown fingerprint, the key server could give you back any key it wanted, and your GPG would just import it. That was a GPG bug, and GPG was patched so that when you ask for this actual fingerprint, when you get back what you get back, it'll check to make sure the fingerprint is actually what you asked for before importing it. So that was a GPG bug. The second aspect to Evil 32 is the fact that it's stupid easy to collide a 32-bit key ID. And what did they do? There you go. It takes 4 seconds to generate a colliding 32-bit key ID on a GPU using Scallion. If Bob was to advertise this, someone with a GPU can create a colliding key in 4 seconds with the same short ID. That's terrifying. It may not be a cryptographically sound key because they may use some shortcuts that actually create weak keys. Obviously, you're not going to create enough random data to actually create those keys properly. So you're going to probably use predictable random data in producing these colliding keys. But if you're an evil person, you don't care if it's a strong key that you use for your attack. You just want to actually create a colliding key ID and then pretend to be Bob everywhere. And if Bob only told the world about this short key ID, then half the people in the world might be using the wrong key ID to talk to Bob, and then the communications can be man-in-the-middled. If Bob actually received some email that was encrypted to a key that had a colliding key ID, he obviously couldn't decrypt it because he's got the wrong actual key. But the point stands that a man-in-the-middle could be reading it and re-encrypting it to the real recipient, Bob. Don't use short key IDs, they're easier to collide. Long IDs are harder to collide, but not hard enough. You should be using full fingerprints because it would be much more difficult for someone to create colliding keys with the same fingerprint. This tool, Scallion, that takes 4 seconds to create a colliding key ID, I think it actually got used in anger to collide with the entire what's called strong set. Let's go GPG strong set. How many keys in the strong set? The strong set is basically the core amount of keys that are strongly connected. It's a statistical thing. They need to have a certain distance from every other key or something like that. It refers to the people who use PGP heavily and who have a lot of signatures. How big is it? So beginning in 2015, the strong set had 55,000 strongly connected PGP keys. The Evil 32 project used this 4 second per key colliding tool to actually create a malicious key for every single one of what was 55,000 keys in 2015. And they actually created a tarball of all of them. And some jerk went and downloaded that tarball and uploaded all of the keys to the key servers. So now everyone who was in the strong set had malicious keys on the key servers that collided with their short ID. And so then the authors of this tool, who had the private part of the keys, went and punched out revocations, which was the right thing to do to try to reduce confusion. So, don't rely on short IDs for verifying key fingerprints. You may have noticed that all throughout the night I kind of did things like GPG-list-keys OXFC541779. It's really easy to remember short key IDs and to use them to refer to keys that are on your computer, because I know exactly which keys are in my home directory. Unless someone went and planted a colliding key in there, then there's no risk in me really doing this. Actually, there kind of is, but I'm also lazy, really lazy. There's a very minimal risk that someone would have to have basically tampered with my computer. If someone's tampered with my computer, I'm already having a really, really bad day. But don't ever use keys, the short key IDs, to validate keys downloaded off key servers. Don't ever put a short key ID on your business card. It's next to useless for the cases in which someone may use your business card to validate that their copy of your key is correct. Business cards, put fingerprints on there. Over the phone validation, do it with fingerprints. On your website, put your fingerprint. Your fingerprint is the only way that people can be assured that they're not looking at a evil copy of your key. So that's fingerprints. Is there any other trivia about keys that we should do before going to bed? I appreciate tonight has been super dry. While I find... Let me just save this for now. PGP notes. I find PGP really quite interesting and exciting until I have to talk about it, and then I realise pretty quickly, oh wow, this is actually super dry and boring. How are people still tuned in and listening? We've actually got 37 people, so 37 people think it's not that dry apparently. So I appreciate your patience tonight. I appreciate that it is a super dry topic. Hopefully my rambling about it helped clarify some stuff, or at the very least gave you an overview of the sort of things you can do with PGP. the role that things like signing other people's keys plays. It strengthens the web of trust, and it helps your GPG tool shut the hell up about warnings. Oh, this person, you don't actually trust their key yet. That's actually a valid warning. Just because a signature checks out doesn't mean it's actually saying that the data was authored by someone in particular. You should always respect and obey those warnings and actually do the legwork. Call them up on the phone, verify the fingerprint, sign their key, and then you won't get that warning anymore, and you'll actually be assured that the message is authored by the person who you think it's authored by. Keys can be used to encrypt stuff to other people. To encrypt something to someone else, you need a copy of their public key. They can then use their private key to decrypt it. You can sign stuff. To sign stuff, you need your private key. Then other people can use your public key to validate the signature. There's 3 types of signatures. There's ClearSign, which actually puts it in the block of ASCII with the signature at the bottom. Detached signatures are their own little file, and then just regular old signatures actually have the plain text baked into it as well. No worries, Parks. It was my pleasure. Hopefully it was enlightening. Hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully it kind of put some things in perspective and how the whole system works. I think that's really all we covered. We failed at the Git stuff. I think that might be a bug or a incompatibility between GPG2 and Git or something. I think it might be an incompatibility between Git and GPG2. So if you're on Debian testing and you're getting Git GPG errors, that might be why. We've still got to go through some best practices. We've still got to go through how to generate your master key offline. We've still got to go through the no worries JEH0 and Jado, thanks for that. Thanks for the kind words. We've still got to go through a bunch of stuff, and then we've finally got to go through the YubiKey stuff as well. But as I said before, it's best to fail hard, fail often, and fail early before you kind of take your key into production. And finally, anything I've said tonight, if message confidentiality, message integrity, or message authentication is important to you, do your own homework. Double check my work, triple check my work. It's just my understanding. I would hate to be wrong and get you into any sort of trouble or danger if you trusted what I said. So please go and do your own homework. But hopefully it's been interesting. If you've got any questions, queries, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. My Twitter DMs are open. If you've got me on Slack, hit me up there. If you've got my email address, hit me up there. Always happy to rap about PGP and how it should be used. If your question is going to be answered in the next stream, I will either give you the spoilers or say, hey, look, good question. We'll talk about that next time. So please reach out to me. Hopefully this was interesting. I'm not sure. We are streaming this Wednesday night. We should probably do more PGP because next Sunday I'm not streaming. I've got family Christmas stuff coming on in anger. I've got stuff to be at. So maybe we will do PGP this Wednesday while it's still fresh in our minds. And then we can all run off and do the dry runs, fail hard, fail early, fail before you go into production. And then when the YubiKeys show up for Christmas, we can get on with that stream as well. So this Wednesday we'll probably do PGP. Sorry for keeping it dry, but it's better to kind of get it out of the way while it's still fresh. Hope you have a good week, and stay safe, and catch you all on the tubes.